Azure Sky Continent, Sovereign City, Shrouded Cloud Empire. The capital throbbed with life. Sunlight flashed off tiered pavilions, their gilded roofs stacked like crowns above the streets. Spirit beasts trotted past, harnessed to lacquered carriages. Nobles and sect elders drifted by in embroidered robes. Disciples in matching uniforms argued over techniques, haggled for talismans, and weighed swords at open-air stalls. Smoke from roasting spirit beast skewers tangled with the scent of herbal tea, while vendors bragged about breakthrough pills and chi-infused buns. A city where geniuses hunted fate. And then, far from the main avenues, an alley most people ignored. At its end stood a shop that didn't belong. Glass walls, a single glass door, a wooden sign swinging lazily. Dimensional convenience store. No bustling waiters. No spiritual pressure. Through the glass you saw nothing. No shelves. No light. Only a little plaque on a chain that read closed. Inside, a young man stretched, shuffled to the door, and flipped the plaque. Open. His name was Hal. 3 days earlier he'd been a part-time clerk on Earth, heading home after rescuing a stray cat when a truck's headlights swallowed the world. He woke here, inside a store tied to a system straight out of a web novel. Host, final warning. Fail to make a sale today, and your future bloodline will be permanently erased. In short, say goodbye to your balls. I get it, Hal muttered. You've told me every day since I arrived. Main task. Sell 1 cup of instant noodles, 0 out of 1. Reward. Unlock new products, cola and chicken-flavored instant noodles delivered after hours. Penalty. System removal plus permanent inability to have descendants. Deadline. 18 hours remaining. Hal exhaled. He'd stared at this screen too many times. Losing the system? Fine. But why take my balls as collateral? Is a test, host, to confirm you are the chosen one. Hal almost coughed blood. What deity decides worthiness with a fertility thread? After this, no more punishments or deadlines. Oh great, so it's sunshine and rainbows after the guillotine. He slumped to the counter. 18 hours. 1 cup of noodles. Easy, until he saw the price. Cost, 1 crystal. In this world, a crystal could equal 5 to 10 gold coins. 1 gold kept a common family fed for a month. Copper, silver, gold served mortals. Cultivators dealt in crystals for training, rare trades, even formations. And he was selling instant noodles for a crystal. On day 1, the system had asked him to pick a connection. Option 1, Cultivation World. Option 2, Post-apocalyptic World. Hal didn't hesitate. He'd grown up on Cultivation novels, flying swords, shattered mountains. How could he refuse? He finally made it to a Cultivation world, only to sit behind a counter hawking luxury-priced noodles. 3 customers had wandered in over 2 days. All 3 had fled after seeing the tag. The system's rules were simple. Complete missions, unlock inventory, upgrade the store. Meet certain conditions, and he'd even earn a day off, maybe step outside and actually see this empire. But first, sell 1 cup of noodles. Hours crawled by. The bell never rang. Hal propped his chin on his palm and stared into the quiet. Maybe this was how legends began, right before a man lost his balls. Just as Hal's eyelids began to droop, the door gave a soft creak. A cool draft rolled in, smelling of wet soil and dawn. The man who stepped through moved with an easy confidence, unhurried, almost playful. He wore plain black robes, stitched with a small soaring sword emblem at the chest. His long hair was tied back loose, a few strands framing a sharp, handsome face. Lin Ejuan, inner disciple of the drifting sword sect. Brilliant at cultivation, terrible at sitting still. He preferred wandering to closed-door seclusion. Some called him a prodigy. Others said he squandered his gifts. Hal lifted his head. Welcome. That was all. No sales pitch. The system didn't allow it anyway. No advertising, no explanations unless asked. Used to overeager shopkeepers, Lin paused, then let his gaze roam. The place was bright, spotless, oddly warm. He'd passed this glass box before and never been able to see inside. Curiosity had finally won. And yet something was off. Row after row of tidy shelves, completely empty. Except one. He walked over. An unfamiliar cup sat stacked in neat columns, wrapped in colorful packaging. Painted steam curled over a rich golden broth on the label. Big characters read, beef-flavored instant noodles. Food? Maybe. He stroked his chin, looked down, and froze at the price. His eyebrow jumped. 1 crystal. Here we go again, Hal thought. But Lin didn't storm out. He turned the cup in his hands, frowning. If a simple food item cost a crystal, it was either special or a scam. And if it was a scam, he could report it. His father, Lin Tianheng, was a law enforcement elder in Sovereign City, the sort who shut down crooked merchants. Lin weighed the cup. Light. He sent a wisp of qi into it. Nothing. No spiritual fluctuation. No hidden formation. No rare ingredient. He brought it to the counter. Boss, this is food, right? Yeah, Hal said. Noodles. Then why is it so expensive? Rare materials? Special effects? How considered? Nodded gravely. It's super delicious. Lin. Silence. Hal's face didn't twitch. Is this guy messing with me? He exhaled, let it slide. 1 crystal wouldn't kill him. He had a few from sect missions. If it was a con, he'd handle it afterward. I'll buy it. Hal's brow flicked up. He pointed to a plaque on the wall. Rule number 2. No refunds, no returns. Once purchased, the product is bound to the buyer. Even the heavens cannot reverse a transaction. A bit dramatic for Noodles, but Lin had already decided. He drew out a crystal from his ring and set it down. All right, boss. Take my money. Hal rang it up on the small black box. Beep. Transaction complete. He handed the cup back. Lin stared at it, then at Hal. So how do I eat this? Finally, Hal gestured toward a tall metal device in the corner. Its mirror-smooth front had a small spout over a circular platform. See that? The water dispenser. Go use it. Dispenser? The term was new, but Lin headed over anyway.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Hal followed. Open the lid of the cup slightly and place it on the circular platform. The dispenser will handle the rest. Lin Yijuan did as instructed. Steaming hot water flowed smoothly into the cup. His eyes flashed with surprise. So this was an enchanted artifact? Hal waited until the dispenser stopped pouring water before speaking. Once it's done, close the lid and grab a pair of chopsticks. They're right there. Hal pointed at a neatly arranged container beside the dispenser. Lin Yijuan picked up a pair and looked back at Hal. Now what? Take a seat in the corner. Place the chopsticks on top of the lid to hold it down firmly. Wait for 3 minutes. Lin Yijuan sat down as told, placing the chopsticks carefully over the lid. After that, stir the noodles to mix the flavor evenly, and then you eat. That's it. 3 minutes had gone by in a flash. Lin Yijuan opened the lid, and in that instant, an intense aroma surged out, wrapping around him like an invisible wave. His breath hitched. It smelled incredible. A deep, rich fragrance of simmered beef broth mixed with the subtle sweetness of vegetables. His mouth watered before he even realized it. Then, a faint wisp of qi rose from the cup. Lin Yijuan's eyes sharpened. Only now did he sense it. This wasn't just food. Qi was seeping from the broth, growing denser with each passing second. Without hesitation, he removed the lid entirely and stirred the noodles. The golden broth rippled, releasing an even stronger aroma. The beef slices were tender, almost melting into the soup. Thin strips of green onion floated alongside chewy strands of wheat noodles. Each swirl of his chopsticks sent another wave of thick, mouth-watering fragrance into the air. Strangely, the qi concentrated even more as he stirred. Lin Yijuan couldn't wait no more. He picked up the noodles with his chopsticks and took a bite. The moment it touched his tongue, his mind blanked. The noodles were perfectly springy, coated in broth that was rich, savory, and deep with umami. The beef carried the essence of long hours of slow simmering, its tenderness complementing the chewiness of the noodles. Even the vegetables had absorbed the soup's essence, bursting with flavor. But more than that, qi flowed through his body with every bite. Warm, nourishing, and impossibly pure. Lin Yijuan thought of nothing else. He slurped down the noodles without hesitation, drinking the broth straight from the cup between bites. The heat didn't bother him. He didn't care. He simply ate, savoring each mouthful in complete silence. In mere moments, the cup was empty. Then, suddenly, Lin Yijuan's eyes shut as his breathing slowed. His entire body stilled. Hao blinked. Don't tell me he actually fainted from how good it was. Host, he didn't pass out, but rather entered an enlightenment state. The instant noodles work like an enlightenment pill, but far more effective. Enlightenment? Ow! I've basically been surviving on these for days. Why didn't I get the same effect? The noodles were undoubtedly delicious. Far better than any 5-star Michelin ramen back on Earth. But enlightenment? He glanced at the empty cup in Lin Yijuan's hands. Isn't this just instant noodles? Host, your meridians are completely sealed. How do you expect to absorb qi from the noodles? So you're saying I've been eating top-grade cultivation food all this time, and it's been completely wasted on me? Correct. Then what about unsealing my meridians? Host, you possess a special constitution. Unsealing your meridians is currently unavailable. You'll be able to do so after completing more tasks and upgrading the system. Hao's eyes brightened. He still had a chance to step onto the path of cultivation. His mood improved instantly. He might not be able to absorb qi now, but as long as there was a way forward, he wouldn't complain. He looked at Lin Yijuan, who remained frozen in place like a stone statue. 1 minute passed, then another. Still nothing. Hao crossed his arms and stared for a while longer, but there was no change. Losing interest, he walked back to the counter. He still had a store to run. Main task, sell 1 cup of instant noodles. 1 of 1. Reward, unlock new products, cola and chicken-flavored instant noodles. They will be delivered to the storage area after business hours. Status completed. Claim your reward now. Hao was saved. His descendants were saved. If he hadn't completed the task, he shuddered. Just thinking about it made his legs go weak. He tapped yes on the screen. Reward claimed. Hao let out a long sigh of relief before smiling. The beef-flavored instant noodles are delicious, but after eating them non-stop, even the best food gets tiring. A new flavor is a blessing. And cola, he hadn't had soda in ages. The mere thought of the crisp, cold fizz hitting his throat made him excited. Host, new tasks are assigned. As stated before, there will be no more penalty or deadline for them. Congratulations on being the chosen one. Hao glanced at the screen. Main task, sell 20 cups of instant noodles. 0 out of 20. Reward, unlock new products, spicy version of beef-flavored instant noodles and chicken-flavored instant noodles. They will be delivered to the storage area after business hours. Side task 1, accumulate 30 crystals from cola. 0 of 30. Reward, unlock new product, lime fizz. It will be delivered to the storage area after business hours. Side task 2, hire your first employee. You weren't planning to do everything yourself, right? 0 of 1. Requirement, the employee must be at least Heavenly King realm or higher. The system will automatically detect individuals within the vicinity who meet the requirements. Reward, store expansion. The 3rd floor will be unlocked, moving your personal room there. The 2nd floor will now be designated for employees. Hire an employee? Yes, host. Although you can stay open throughout the day, it will take a toll on your mortal body. Having an employee will lighten your workload and ensure the store runs smoothly at all times. In that case, will they be working all day while I just sit back and supervise? Of course not, host. The employee is there to assist and cover for you when needed. They can also manage the store at night if necessary, allowing you to rest properly. Boss, was it the noodles that granted me enlightenment? Hao was about to fall asleep when Lin Yijuan's voice jolted him awake. His snapped open. He sat up straight, quickly regaining his composure. Without a trace of surprise on his face, he nodded. Yes, the instant noodles are the cause of it. Lin Yijuan's brows furrowed. How though? When I inspected them before, they didn't have any special properties. He replayed the experience in his mind. The noodles were ordinary before they were cooked, but after being soaked in hot water, they had emitted a faint trace of qi. Could it be that the effect was only activated during the cooking process? If so, that would explain why he hadn't sensed anything unusual before. A single serving of these noodles was worth far more than just one crystal. If he had known it would grant him insight into sword intent, he wouldn't have hesitated to pay 50 no, even 100 crystals for it. Lin Yijuan was never someone who blindly chased after strength, nor did he force himself to cultivate beyond what felt natural. But if eating a cup of noodles could give him a massive leap forward, why wouldn't he take advantage of it? Letting this kind of opportunity slip away would be outright foolish. Plus, the noodles were the most delicious food he had ever tasted. Even without the enlightenment effect, he could confidently say he would pay 5 crystals just to eat it again. Lin Yijuan had tasted all kinds of delicacies during his travels. From street vendors to grand banquets, he had tried it all. Yet, the cup of instant noodles stood above them all. Even the Azure Mist Dining Pavilion, famous for serving the most prestigious dishes in Sovereign City, paled in comparison. Lin Yijuan stood up and walked straight to the shelves. His eyes locked onto the instant noodles, as if he had discovered a priceless treasure. He grabbed another cup, turned around, and headed toward the counter. Placing the instant noodles down, he took out a crystal. "Boss, I want to buy another one." Lin Yijuan was met with a response he never expected. "You can't buy more than 1 cup of instant noodles in a day. Come back tomorrow." Hao replied, pointing at the board behind him. Lin Yijuan frowned and followed Hao's finger. Rule number 1. Daily limits are absolute. Each customer may purchase only one of each product per day. Greed is not tolerated. He stared at it in disbelief. What kind of absurd rule is this? Rule number 2 already sounded like a threat, but this rule number 1 was even crazier. He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Boss, is it the price? I don't mind paying more. I'll pay 5 crystals." "No," Hao answered, shaking his head. "Rules are rules." Lin Yijuan felt like he had just been struck by lightning. This was the first time he had ever encountered a store owner who refused to make more money. He checked his storage ring. Inside, he found a total of 9 crystals. If he hadn't spent so much on his travels, he would have had far more. "Boss, please." Lin Yijuan tried again. "Just one more cup. I'll pay 10 crystals for it." Hao wanted to accept. He really did. However, he could only steel his resolve. He had already tried to argue with the system about this ridiculous rule before, without success. What kind of store only allowed customers to buy one of each item per day? Wasn't the point of a business to sell as much as possible? When Hao first read the rule number 1, he had the exact same reaction as Lin Yijuan. But no matter how dumb it seemed, rules were rules. Host, greed breeds chaos. To maintain balance and fairness, each customer is limited to 1 purchase per day. True fortune comes not from hoarding, but from patience. Only those who understand restraint can savor the blessings granted to them. Wasn't this just a fancy way of saying no because I said so? Lin Yijuan, unaware of the system's nonsense, looked at Hao with pleading eyes. "Boss, come on." Hao didn't even hesitate. "No, there's no point in trying." Hao cut him off. "The answer will always be no." Lin Yijuan sighed. Then, as if finding a new angle, he straightened up and said seriously, "Boss, rules are rules, but aren't rules meant to be bent?" Lin Yijuan didn't reply. Instead, he silently walked to a corner and sat down, seemingly lost in thought. Hao had no idea what Lin Yijuan was thinking about, but as long as the man wasn't causing trouble, he didn't care. If Lin Yijuan wanted to sit there all day, that was fine by him. With nothing else to do, Hao asked the system, "System, can I ask this guy to promote the store to increase sales?" Rejected. "Host, as the owner of Dimensional Convenience Store, you must uphold dignity and self-respect. Begging customers for promotion? Have you no shame?" Before he could even argue, the system continued. "A true merchant lets the value of their goods speak for itself. If the store is worth spreading, it will spread naturally. However, if he voluntarily does it without any intervention from you, that is acceptable. Hao was already used to the system's strange logic. He could only shake his head with a faint smile. Lin Yijuan remained seated for a while before finally standing up and making his way to Hao. I am Lin Yijuan, inner disciple of the Drifting Sword sect. That was all he said, as if waiting for Hao's response. The name's Hao. Lin Yijuan nodded. All right, boss Hao. I'll be back tomorrow. Lin Yujin clasped his hands, gave a slight bow, and left the store. As the door swung shut, Hao leaned back, but then suddenly remembered something. Hey, Lin Yijuan, don't forget to spread the word about the instant noodles, he shouted in his mind. After all, that guy did have an enlightenment while eating. It was only fair to return the favor. But outside, Lin Yijuan didn't even pause. He walked away without looking back, his long black robe fluttering behind him. And so, silence returned to the store. For the next hour, Hao sat behind the counter, half asleep, waiting for another customer to appear. Just as he was starting to doze off, the door creaked open once more. Two women stepped in, bringing the scent of blooming flowers. The first was tall and breathtakingly beautiful. Her long silver hair was smooth and flowing, reaching down to her chest. Her skin was pale and flawless, clear like fine jade, and her eyes carried a cold, distant aura. Her face remained calm, her expression unreadable, yet there was an undeniable presence about her. It was the kind of quiet dominance that made the air feel heavier, as if just standing in the same room as her required permission. She was Yu Shuiyan. Beside her stood another young woman, slightly shorter but still tall. Unlike Yu Shuiyan's detached elegance, this girl's emotions were clearly written on her face. Her wavy chestnut brown hair reached her shoulders. Her skin had the same porcelain-like glow as Yu Shuiyan's, though her presence was warmer and more expressive. She was not as overwhelmingly stunning as Yu Shuiyan, but she had her own charm, lively and approachable in contrast to the other's icy beauty. This was Hua Feishue. Both of them wore white robes with light blue accents. Embroidered on their chests was a 5-petaled flower, marking their affiliation, Snow Petal Sect. The petals on Hua Feishue's robe were soft pink, signifying her status as an inner disciple. On Yu Shuiyan's robe, the petals were deep pink, marking her as a core disciple. This is the place Senior's sister, the one I told you about. Hua Feishue had passed by this store before, but no matter how much she tried to peer in, she couldn't see what was inside. That alone made her curious. A store that concealed its interior like this? It had to be hiding something interesting. Yu Shuiyan didn't respond, and simply swept her gaze across the store. At the counter, Hao rubbed his sleepy eyes, barely processing the new customers. Welcome. Hua Feishue's eyes immediately lit up as she noticed Hao. Oh, there's actually someone here. Hua Feishue took a step closer, her eyes scanning Hao. Wait, you're the store owner? Hao blinked. Yeah. Hua Feishue's curiosity only grew. Really? You look kind of young. What do you sell here? Yu Shuiyan, meanwhile, remained quiet. She glanced at Hao briefly, but showed no interest, as if he wasn't even worth acknowledging. Instant noodles. Instant noodles? What's that? Hua Feishue knew what noodles were, but instant noodles? That was a term she had never heard before. Even Yu Shuiyan, who had shown no interest so far, gave a slight look in Hao's direction. She didn't speak, but there was a faint trace of curiosity in her eyes. Without much thought, Hao pointed toward the shelves where the cup of instant noodles were displayed. Hua Feishue followed his gesture and walked over, her gaze falling on the unfamiliar-looking packages. Hua Feishue sniffed the cups, trying to figure out the flavor. It smells like nothing? Are these even edible? Yu Shuiyan, standing beside Hua Feishue, picked up one of the cups and read the characters on the illustration. Beef-flavored instant noodles. Hua Feishue tilted her head. Beef? How does that taste? She turned the cup in her hands, trying to see if there was anything special about it. It was just a lightweight container. No spiritual chi fluctuations, no unique aura. Just a plain, ordinary object. Then, her eyes moved downward. Hua Feishue's eyes widened. She rubbed them, just to make sure she wasn't seeing things. Senior's sister. Hua Feishue swallowed. I I think my eyes are playing tricks on me. Can you check the price for me? Yu Shuiyin also noticed it. The price was clearly written on a small tag below the display. 1 crystal. Hua Feishua whipped her head toward Hao. Owner, does this really cost 1 crystal? Yeah. Hua Feishua almost dropped the cup. A crystal? This isn't a dining pavilion. Why does it cost so much? Does it require special preparation? Yu Shuiyin asked, throwing out an entirely different question. To cook it? No. Just hot water is enough. Hua Feishua narrowed her eyes at Hao suspiciously. Owner, you're not scamming us, right? To Hua Feishua, it didn't make sense. 1 crystal could buy a full-course meal. Who in their right mind would spend that much on noodles? Before Hua Feishua could continue, Yu Shuiyin suddenly raised her slender finger and lightly pressed it against Hua Feishua's lips, stopping her from speaking further. Yu Shuiyin lowered her hand and spoke calmly. We'll both try it. Hua Feishua blinked in surprise. Senior sister? Yu Shuiyin was intrigued. Either this was an elaborate scam, or there was something special about this product. Yu Shuiyin had already tried to sense Hao's cultivation level earlier, but found nothing. Either he was a mere mortal, or he was a hidden expert, disguising his true strength. And if he really was a senior in disguise, there was no way he would go through all this trouble just to scam people out of a single crystal. If these noodles weren't worth their price, she could easily deal with the owner herself. Hua Feishua, seeing Yu Shuiyin's decision, could only sigh in defeat. Fine, but if this turns out to be a scam, I'll make sure we don't leave empty-handed. Yu Shuiyin calmly picked up 2 cups and placed 2 spirit crystals on the counter. Yu Shuiyin grabbed 2 cups of instant noodles and took out 2 crystals, placing them on the counter in front of Hao. You're sure about this? Hao pointed at the rule number 2 on the board. Was buying noodles supposed to feel like signing a life-binding contract? Senior sister, why does this sound so serious? Even the heavens can't reverse it? Is this noodle store backed by some immortal sect? Yu Shuiyin merely squinted at the board, then turned back to Hao. We are sure. Hao shrugged. All right. He extended his hand toward them. Hua Feishua stared at his open palm. What was this? A handshake? A secret martial arts greeting? A hidden technique transmission? Hua Feishua took a step back. Wait, what are you doing? Hao sighed. Hand it over first. I need to scan it to verify your purchase. Fairy Mrs. Hua Feishua nearly choked. Fairy Mrs.? Hua Feishua turned to Yu Shuiyin, only to see her senior sister silently placing her cup in Hao's hand without hesitation. Hua Feishua had no choice but to follow. Hao took the cups and ran them over a small black box. Beep, beep, done. Hao handed them back. As they took their cups, Hao finally took a good look at the 2. Before, he hadn't paid much attention, but now that he looked closer, damn, they weren't just beautiful. They were the kind of beautiful that could make the world go silent. Even without makeup, their skin was flawless, like jade polished to perfection. If they walked in a modern world, they wouldn't just be top-tier celebrities. They would be on the level of goddess-like figures in fantasy dramas. And Yu Shuiyin, her beauty wasn't just about her face. It was the way she carried herself, as if she stood above the mundane world. Hao exhaled lightly. Cultivators really weren't normal. Hao walked over to the water dispenser and gave it a tap. Okay, listen up. Open the lid a little, put your cup in the holder, and this machine will do the work for you. Machine? What kind of artifact is this, owner? It's called water dispenser. It gives you water, hot, cold, or room temperature. Hua Feishua looked at the water in disbelief. An artifact that pours water on command? Convenient, Yu Shuiyin thought. Hua Feishua hesitated for a second before peeling back the lid of her cup and placing it in the holder. A perfect stream of hot water flowed out, stopping precisely at the right amount. It really works. Hao ignored Hua Feishua and grabbed 2 pairs of chopsticks, handing them over. Now, sit in the corner. Place the chopsticks on top of the lid to seal it. The noodles will be ready in 3 minutes. Hua Feishua looked at her senior sister, her expression full of doubt. Yu Shuiyin gave a small nod, so she submitted to the instructions. Yu Shuiyin copied her, placing her cup under the dispenser, waiting for the water, then quietly going to sit in the corner. Hua Feishua leaned toward Yu Shuiyin and whispered, Senior sister, is this really edible? 3 minutes. Can something cook that quickly? This won't poison us, will it? If it does, we'll die together. Yu Shuiyan replied, clearly teasing. Hua Fei Shua. Hua stared at her senior sister, then at the cup, then back at her senior sister. Senior sister, are you serious? Amen. Yu Shuiyan gave a slow nod, her face unreadable. Should we really be eating this? From behind the counter, Hao suddenly coughed, drawing their attention. He had overheard their conversation and was caught off guard. He never thought Yu Shuiyan, who looked so cold and composed, could actually make a joke. Was that even a joke? Or is she really prepared to die over a cup of noodles? Time slipped away, and 3 minutes had come and gone. Time's up. This should be ready to eat, senior sister. Try it and see. Yu Shuiyan said, already reaching for her own cup. Hua Fei Shua paused briefly before picking up her chopsticks and carefully opening the lid. As soon as she did, steam curled into the air, carrying an intoxicating aroma. The rich fragrance of broth and vegetables enveloped her senses. Yu Shuiyan also opened her cup, and the scent instantly captured both of them. Their eyes widened as they noticed something unusual. Thin wisps of qi leaked from the noodles. Before they could react, Hao's voice snapped them out of their trance. You have to mix it first before eating. Otherwise, the flavor won't be evenly distributed. The two exchanged glances before hurriedly stirring the noodles. The golden broth rippled, its fragrance growing even richer. Hua Fei Shua, practically trembling, could no longer wait. She lifted a portion of noodles with her chopsticks and took a bite. The moment it touched her tongue, her pupils shrank. The noodles were springy, absorbing the deep, savory broth perfectly. Each strand carried an umami-rich essence, making it impossible to stop at just one bite. She slurped them down, savoring the way the broth coated every strand. If so, good, Hua Fei Shua mumbled, barely managing to speak between slurps. Yu Xian elegantly lifted a piece of beef and tasted it. Her movements were refined, but her expression betrayed her shock. The beef was tender, practically melting in her mouth. It had soaked up the broth's flavors, bursting with richness as soon as she bit down. The taste of slow-simmered meat, enhanced by a delicate balance of spices, lingered on her tongue. This wasn't just ordinary meat. It was as if it came from a top-grade spirit beast raised on the purest spiritual grasses, its flesh naturally infused with qi. However, even the most prized cattle beasts of high-tier sex wouldn't match this depth of flavor. The marbling melted perfectly, each fiber carrying an umami that sent waves of warmth through her body. Yu Shuiyan swallowed and looked at her cup. How could something cook this fast and still taste this good? Hua Fei Shua had already moved on to the vegetables. The thinly sliced greens had absorbed the broth as well, providing a slight crunch that balanced out the dish. Every bite carried layers of flavor, from the sweetness of the vegetables to the deep umami of the broth. Hua Fei Shua brought the cup to her lips and sipped the broth. Her entire body stiffened. The broth was the soul of the dish. A perfect blend of savory and slightly sweet, layered with the intense flavor of meat that tasted as if it had been stewed for an entire day. Yu Shuiyan also took a sip. A soft umami slipped out of her lips before she could stop it. She paused, momentarily startled by her own reaction, before swiftly returning to her usual self. The traces of qi within the broth coursed through her meridians, nourishing her body in a way she had never experienced from a meal. Yu Shuiyan had eaten in the most prestigious dining pavilions, where every dish was infused with qi. She had tasted rare spirit beast meat, delicacies refined by alchemists, and meals so expensive that even nobles hesitated before ordering. But none of them compared to this. And it was only one crystal. The qi within the broth was pure, rich, and effortlessly absorbed into her body. There was no need to refine it, no need to filter impurities. It was like drinking liquid, spiritual energy itself. She and Hua Fei Shua glanced at each other before focusing back on their cups. They slurped down every last strand, drained the broth to the last drop, and before they knew it, their cups were empty. The two sat motionless, eyes closed, their expressions blank. Even Hua Fei Shua, who could never sit still for more than a breath, had frozen in place. They had both entered a state of enlightenment. Hao rested his chin on his hand, observing the two with a pang of envy. I hope I can experience that someday. Be patient, host. Your time will come. Not today, and definitely not tomorrow. But as the owner of the dimensional convenience store, you must learn to endure. Keep pushing forward, complete more missions, and one day, you'll get there. System, are you reassuring me, or just rubbing it in? Well, the system's words weren't wrong. Hao really did have to wait. And as long as there was a chance, he had no reason to go for it. He just hoped it wouldn't take too long. Surely, it wouldn't be years before it happened, right? Right? Hao gulped. Why did it feel like he just flagged himself? Around half an hour passed. No customers came, but Hao was already used to it. They should be about to wake up now. Hao thought, remembering Lin Yijuan. Just as he expected, the first to wake up was Yu Shuiyan. She blinked a few times before turning her head toward Hao. Her clear eyes locked onto him, holding an unreadable emotion. She didn't say anything, just stared. Hao felt a little uncomfortable. Are you good? Yu Shuiyan continued to stare for a few more seconds before nodding slightly. Then, as if nothing had happened, she looked away. Before Hao could process it, Hua also opened her eyes. She immediately gasped in excitement. Senior sister, I've broken through to the 4th stage of Sane Apprentice Realm. Hua Feishue practically bounced in place, her face full of joy. And I've also gained insight into Petal Snow Palm. You know, the low Saint rank martial technique I've been struggling with. Hua Feishue clenched her fists. I think I can use it now. As the last word left her lips, she abruptly stopped. Her gaze fell upon the empty cup before her. Could my enlightenment be related to the noodles I just ate? She slowly turned to Hao's direction. The store owner, a mortal with no cultivation whatsoever. At least, that was what her senses told her. But was that really the case? She squinted, looking at him as if he were some mysterious expert hidden in plain sight. Owner, is it really the noodles? No, wait. Are you actually hiding your cultivation? Maybe you're an expert in disguise? Or maybe it's a secret technique. Is it related to the soup, the seasoning, or was it the chopsticks? Tell me. Hua Feishue fired off questions one after another, barely giving Hao a chance to respond. Hao opened his mouth, but Hua Feishue was already talking again. Wait. Maybe it's some kind of test. Like if I eat more, I'll have another enlightenment? Hao looked at her blankly. Was this girl serious? Before Hua Feishue could continue her wild theories, a cold voice cut in. Feishue, that's enough. Yu Shuiyan gently placed a hand on Hua's shoulder, stopping her from bouncing around. Her gaze was cold as usual, but there was a softness in her touch, a silent way of telling Hua to calm down. Hua pouted, but obediently took a step back. Yu Shuiyan turned her attention to Hao. What kind of beast meat is it, owner? That was an unexpected question. System, what kind of meat is in the noodles? The meat is from a water cattle, host, a rare beast that thrives in deep lakes and river valleys. Unlike any cattle beast, it is exclusively fed on pure aquatic spirit grass, which enhances the quality of its meat. Due to its diet and environment, water cattle meat is known for its high concentration of spirit energy, making it extremely nutritious and beneficial for cultivation. The dense muscle fibers also allow for a richer taste and texture. Hao looked at Yu Shuiyan and repeated the explanation. It's from a beast called water cattle. Water cattle? Hua Feishue muttered, tilting her head. Yu Shuiyan furrowed her brows. She had heard of many cattle-type beasts, but this one didn't ring a bell. Seeing their doubtful expressions, Hao repeated the system's explanation in more detail. It lives in deep lakes and feeds only on aquatic spirit grass. That's why it's meat. Hua Feishue's jaw dropped slightly. Yu Shuiyan's eyes widened for a fraction of a second before she regained her composure. So that explains it, Yu Shuiyan murmured. Does this mean the owner is some hidden expert? Hua Feishue thought. Yu Shuiyan suddenly took a step forward and bowed deeply. Thank you for your guidance, senior. Hao froze. Wait, what? What has happened? Yu Shuiyan remained bowed. She knew that mere words weren't enough to express her gratitude. Not only had her junior sister broken through, But she had also advanced to the second stage of Saint Realm herself, gaining insights into two high Saint rank martial techniques: Thousand Snow, Sword Dance, and White Petal Severing Slash. Yu Shuiyan's ability to absorb and refine her understanding during that state was proof of her talent. But she understood that without this opportunity, she wouldn't have achieved such results so soon. She had to show respect. Meanwhile, Hal stood there, utterly baffled. Huh, did she just call him senior? What part of him looked like a senior? Host, she may have misunderstood your identity. Given her personality, she likely believes that you are a hidden expert disguising yourself as a mortal store owner. It is a common trope among cultivators. Hal twitched. What kind of nonsense was this? However, out of nowhere, memories surfaced in his mind. Wait a minute, this was actually reasonable. Hadn't he seen this exact scenario in countless web novels? The mysterious senior disguised as a store owner, selling ordinary-looking yet heaven-defying items? The unsuspecting cultivators treating him as a mortal, only to realize later that they were in the presence of a hidden expert? Should he play along? But I'm not even old, and I'm really just a mortal. As if reading Hal's thoughts, the system interjected. Host, as the owner of the dimensional convenience store, you must uphold honesty and integrity. Lying to customers goes against the store's principles. All right, I know. I won't do it. It just crossed my mind. Hua Feishue, who had been watching silently, straightened her back. She copied Yu Shuiyan's action and bowed deeply as well. However, unlike Yu Shuiyan's calm and dignified bow, Hua's was much more dramatic. Senior, thank you for bestowing us with your divine food. Hal almost choked. System, what do I even say to them? A nod should be enough, host. MHM. Hal nodded as the system advised, trying to look as unfazed as possible. Yu Shuiyan and Hua Feishue raised their heads. Hua Feishue spoke up right away, her eyes twinkling like stars. Senior, can we purchase more cups of instant noodles? If we eat more, will we experience enlightenment again? Yu Shuiyan immediately turned to glare at Hua Feishue, looking upset. But internally, good going, Feishue. That's my junior sister for you. Hal crushed their hopes without hesitation. No, you cannot purchase the same product more than once a day. He raised his hand and pointed at the board again. This time, his finger landed on the very first rule. Hua Feishue read it out loud. Rule number 1. Daily limits are absolute. Hua Feishue's lips quivered as she gave Hal wide, pleading eyes. Senior, why can't we buy more than one each? Is it because it's only one crystal? Then, I'll pay 30 crystals for it. Senior, it's definitely worth more than that, but that's all I have right now. 30 crystals? That was 30 times the price. System, can't we just bend the rules a little for today? It's 30 crystals. That's a great profit, isn't it? Host, the price is irrelevant. Whether it is 1 crystal or 1,000,000, the rule remains the same. Each customer may only purchase one of each product per day. This is a strict policy to ensure fairness and prevent potential misuse. Hal scoffed. Ah, yes, of course. True wisdom at its finest. Ensuring absolute fairness by denying someone a second cup of instant noodles. Looking back at Hua Feishue, Hal flatly replied, even if you pay 100 crystals for it, or even 1,000,000, it doesn't matter. The answer will always be no. Rules are rules. Just come back tomorrow. Hua Feishue's shoulders drooped, her lips curling into a pitiful pout. She looked like a sad kitten abandoned in the rain. Yu Shuiyan, who had been about to offer 100 crystals herself, held back. Hal had made his stance clear. No matter what they offered, his answer wouldn't change. But instead of feeling disappointed, Yu Shuiyan saw things differently. Wasn't the reason rather obvious? It must be because their bodies could not absorb the spiritual qi from the instant noodles again within such a short period. If they forced themselves to consume more, it might harm them instead of benefiting them. This senior, he is not just a powerful expert, but also a kind one. To think that he went as far as setting rules to protect his customers. No wonder he insists on them being followed. Yu Shuiyan's respect for Hao deepened. She reached out and grabbed Hua Feishue by the wrist before she could protest further. We understand, senior. We will return tomorrow. Before we leave, Senior, allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Yu Xian. This is my junior sister, Hua Fei Shua. Oh, they were introducing themselves now. You two can call me Hao. Yu Xian lowered her head slightly in acknowledgement. At the same time, she pressed down lightly on Hua Fei Shua's head, forcing her to bow as well. Hua Fei Shua puffed out her cheeks. You got it, Senior Hao. Without hesitation, Yu Xian turned and walked toward the exit, dragging Hua Fei Shua along with her. Wait, Senior sister. Just one more question. Let's go, Fei Shua. With that, the two left the store. Hua Fei Shua looked back pitifully, as if she had left behind a great treasure. Yu Xian, however, did not glance back. She had already scanned the store earlier and confirmed there was nothing else aside from the cup of instant noodles. That fact alone made Yu Xian even more certain. Something as powerful as that cup of noodles was already beyond reason. Why would the senior even need to sell anything else? A cup of beef-flavored instant noodles was all anyone could ask for. However, one question lingered in Yu Xian's mind. Why was the senior doing this? Selling something that could bring enlightenment for a single crystal, it was obviously not for profit. If that were the case, he would have agreed to Fei Shua's offer immediately or, for a far better deal, put it up for auction at a high-level pavilion. Then what was the reason? Inside the store, Hao absent-mindedly muttered. Senior Hao? It had a nice ring to it, but it also felt weird. Hao shook his head. Whatever. Phew. Hao let out a long breath, finally getting some time alone. It wasn't that he disliked their presence. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Standing inside the store all day with no one to talk to except the system was boring. But dealing with someone like Hua Fei Shua was draining. It felt like he needed to recharge after that. The rest of the day passed as usual. One customer came in late at night, took a single look at the price, and left while complaining. That was the only visitor after those three. By 10 p.m., an hour earlier than the previous nights, Hao decided to close the store. It should be fine. After all, today was a success. He had completed a mission. He had sold 3 cups of noodles. A small achievement, but one worth celebrating. As a reward for himself, Hao went to bed early. Tomorrow, new products would arrive. He couldn't help but look forward to it. The morning sun had yet to rise, but Hao was already awake. Why? Was he a morning person? Absolutely not. The real culprit was none other than the system. If he did not wake up early, the system would send a current through his body, jolting him awake like a man struck by heavenly tribulation. Hao had even gone all out arguing. I could have died from that. But the system was quick with its rebuttal. It is not that serious, host. I made sure the current was just enough to wake you up without harming your body in any way. If I did not do this, you would slack off, a trait that the owner of a dimensional convenience store should not have. Hao wanted to object, but what was the point? The system clearly did not care. After taking a shower, he hurried downstairs to the storage area, excitement replacing his earlier moodiness. The moment Hao walked in, a wide grin formed on his face. There were 15 cartons instead of 5. He rushed over and checked the labels. Beef-flavored instant noodles. Chicken-flavored instant noodles. And lastly, cola. Hao looked like he was about to cry. His hands trembled as he opened the carton containing the cola. Inside, rows of neatly arranged cans greeted him. The metal gleamed under the light, each can dark red with elegant golden characters printed across it. The pull tab featured a small golden pin design. He carefully set the carton aside and checked the new chicken-flavored instant noodles. The packaging was similar to the beef-flavored instant noodles, but the illustration was different. Instead of a steaming bowl of beef noodles, there was now an inviting image of tender chicken slices floating in rich broth. It looked just as high class. Feeling refreshed, Hao quickly got to work. First, he restocked the beef-flavored instant noodles shelf until it was full again. Next, he arranged the chicken-flavored instant noodles on the shelf beside it, making sure the labels were all facing forward. After that, he moved on to the cola, placing each can into the glass door refrigerator. He filled an entire shelf with the cans. When he was done, he took a step back and admired his work. The store looked better. There were still a lot of empty shelves, making it seem somewhat abandoned. But compared to yesterday, this was a huge improvement. Pleased with the progress, Hao chose to indulge a little. Breakfast time. Of course, he picked the new chicken-flavored instant noodles. After pouring in the hot water and waiting a few minutes, he took his first bite. Delicious. Just like the beef flavor, the quality was top-notch. A full 5-star experience. Having finished, Hao reached for a can of cola. With a satisfying pop, he opened it and took a deep chug. Yes, this was it. That crisp, refreshing sweetness. The tiny burn of carbonation as it went down his throat. The slight kick at the end that left him wanting more. For a brief time, Hao felt like he was on top of the world. Powerful. Invincible. Of course, aside from the overwhelming satisfaction, nothing extraordinary happened. No enlightenment. No sudden burst of strength. No hidden cultivation benefits. Just a really good soda. Hao wasn't bothered by it. The soda's taste alone was worth it. Today was a good day. He had new products. The store looked less miserable. He even had a new flavor of noodles. Things were moving in the right direction. Meanwhile, outside the convenience store, in the quiet alley of Sovereign City, a place rarely walked by, for figures stood waiting. And they weren't just any people. They were disciples from top sects in the Shrouded Cloud Empire. Among them was Lin Yijuan, the first ever customer Hao had served. Lin Yijuan reached out and placed his hand on the convenience store door. He pushed lightly. The door didn't move. Lin Yijuan frowned. Maybe he had been too gentle. He applied a bit more strength. Still nothing. Now serious, Lin Yijuan steadily increased his power. The seconds passed. His hand pressed harder. His feet dug into the ground. His arms tensed. Before he knew it, he was giving it his all. Veins popped on his forehead. His breathing turned rough. His face started to turn red. Yet, the door didn't even shake. Not a single movement. Not a single creak. What kind of door is this? Lin Yijuan gritted his teeth, still pushing with all his might. Is this some kind of divine artifact, crafted by the boss? Standing behind him, a fellow disciple stepped forward with a small sigh. Brother Yijuan, you've been slacking off again, haven't you? I told you to keep training with me, but you just keep taking it easy. If you had kept up with our sparring sessions, this door would have been nothing. The man was dressed in the same white robe as Lin Yijuan, his dark brown hair neatly styled in a simple fringe that gave him a tidy and composed appearance. He was just as handsome as Lin Yijuan, but his presence radiated a sense of order that sharply contrasted Lin Yijuan's easygoing nature. This was Xiao Yinfeng, Lin Yijuan's sworn brother. Unlike Lin Yijuan, who was an inner sect disciple, Xiao Yinfeng was a core disciple of the Drifting Sword sect. Lin Yijuan turned his head slightly, giving Xiao Yinfeng an exaggerated glare. Huh, you can keep your nonstop training to yourself, Brother Yinfeng. Not everyone has to spend every waking hour cultivating like you. Xiao Yinfeng's face didn't even twitch. It's not about spending hours, Brother Yijuan. It's about being dedicated. Don't complain when the door doesn't open. You've got the strength, but no discipline. Lin Yijuan huffed, still putting all his weight into the door. Xiao Yinfeng gave a slight shake of his head. Brother Yijuan, let me try it. Lin Yijuan moved step aside with a casual shrug. Now the spotlight was on Xiao Yinfeng, the new contender in opening the door. Xiao Yinfeng knew Lin Yijuan was lazy, but despite that, his strength was undeniable. If Lin Yijuan had struggled to open the door, it could only mean that the door itself was something special. Xiao Yinfeng, unwilling to look weak in front of his sworn brother, quickly planted his feet and set his shoulders. With a grunt, he threw all his force into the push. His arms tightened, muscles flexing as he shoved hard against the door, using every ounce of his strength. However, same case as Lin Yijuan, the door remained still. Xiao Yinfeng stepped back, breathing more heavily than usual, his face calm, but internally confused. How? Xiao Yinfeng muttered, glancing at the door with suspicion. Behind him, Lin Yijuan couldn't hold back anymore. He burst out laughing, the sound echoing down the alley. Huh, so it's not just me. Huh, Brother Yinfeng. Lin Yijuan teased, his grin wide. I guess this door's too much even for you. Xiao Yinfeng shot him a piercing look, but couldn't hide a smile. Looks like neither of us is strong enough for this door, brother Yijuan. Lin Yijuan had no doubts left. If even Xiao Yinfeng, who was on the verge of breaking through to the Saint Realm, couldn't open the door, then this wasn't a simple case of brute strength. Xiao Yinfeng's cultivation was many stages above his own. For such a door to remain completely unmoved, not even shaking under Xiao Yinfeng's full force, meant one thing. This merely isn't some locked door. Lin Yijuan thought, rubbing his chin. It must be protected by an incredibly powerful spell, array formation, or sealing arts. Something that even the word formidable isn't enough to describe. Xiao Yinfeng nodded. It makes sense. There's no way an ordinary door could withstand us both. This must be a work of a master. Just as they were deep in thought, a sudden laugh sounded behind them. Are you two all muscle and no brain? Can't you see the sign says closed? That's why you can't open it. Lin Yijuan and Xiao Yinfeng stiffened. The voice belonged to Hua Feishue, one of the disciples from the Snow Petal sect. Hua Feishue stood with her arms crossed, looking down at them with a smug expression, as if she were watching two overgrown children making fools of themselves. However, in reality, she had almost done the same thing. Hua Feishue had also been about to march forward and try her luck at pushing the door open. Thankfully, at the last second, her senior sister, Yu Xian, had grabbed her sleeve and subtly pointed to the hanging wooden sign on the other side of the door. Closed. Hua Feishue barely stopped herself from stepping into embarrassment, but she definitely would have tried if not for Yu Xian's intervention. Truly fortunate. She nearly joined in their humiliation. Hee. Meanwhile, Lin Yijuan and Xiao Yinfeng stood frozen in place, staring at the sign, then at each other. Realizing the situation, they immediately straightened up. Their backs went stiff. Their expressions turned calm and dignified, as if nothing had happened. Both of them let out a couple of fake coughs. Ahem. Ah, yes, naturally, Lin Yijuan said. We were simply testing it. Right. Xiao Yinfeng agreed, nodding sagely. We knew something wasn't right. Deep down? Damn it. Did they just embarrass themselves in front of the disciples of Snow Petal sect? Well, nah. Not in front of the Jade Beauties. One was Hua Feishue, the Winter Storm, and the other one was even more impressive, Yu Xian, the Ice Fairy. Both were stunningly beautiful and widely revered as geniuses in their own right. Lin Yijuan and Xiao Yinfeng were no slouches in status themselves, but after what they had just done, their dignity had taken a serious hit. Xiao Yinfeng turned to Lin Yijuan and sent a mental transmission. What do we do, brother Yijuan? Lin Yijuan, still trying to act cool despite his face burning red, replied almost immediately. I also don't have any idea, brother Yinfeng. You should have known that door wasn't ordinary. They sighed simultaneously inside. The awkwardness between them was thick enough to cut with a sword. But then, a spark lit up in Lin Yijuan's mind. Hold on. Aren't you two also curious how much strength it really takes to open this thing? Lin Yijuan said loudly, slapping his palms together dramatically. Or what kind of spell or array formation is holding this door shut? Xiao Yinfeng raised an eyebrow, but caught on and nodded. Right. Brother Yijuan makes a good point. This door must be fortified with some high-level array, don't you think? Hua Feishue, who had been trying to suppress her curiosity, found herself nodding along before she even realized it. That's true. I mean, logically speaking, it has to be an extremely powerful spell. Maybe a sealing technique? No, it might be a spatial lock. Hua Feishue stopped mid-sentence, realizing she'd been swept up in the conversation. The three of them remained in place, deep in thought, studying the door. Yu Xian, on the other hand, had been silently watching the entire time. Her eyes shifted downward, and she noticed that the sign was flipped. Now, it unmistakably read open. Without saying a word, Yu Xian walked over to the door, pushed it effortlessly, and stepped inside. Let's go, Feishue. Hua Feishue blinked, snapping out of her daydream. She quickly followed behind Yu Xian. Lin Yijuan and Xiao Yinfeng stood frozen outside, staring at each other. Did we really just Lin Yijuan began, but Xiao Yinfeng interrupted him with a weak chuckle. I guess we're not getting out of this one, Xiao Yinfeng muttered. Lin Yijuan straightened up as if he was already past the embarrassment. Xiao Yinfeng mirrored him, though it was clear from their expressions that their panic hadn't quite subsided. They entered the store hastily, pretending nothing had happened. Inside the store, Yu Shuiyan and Hua Feishue greeted Hao with a respectful bow. Greetings, Senior. Greetings, Senior Hao. Is this their way of saying good morning? Hao had seen plenty of customers, but getting treated like some big shot was definitely a first. Welcome. Yu Shuiyan and Hua Feishue made their way to the shelf where the legendary beef-flavored instant noodles were displayed. However, their eyes soon caught onto something else. Right beside the usual cups was another set of instant noodles with nearly identical packaging. The only difference was the illustration. Hua Feishue grabbed one and read the label. Chicken-flavored instant noodles. Senior Hao, is this a new product? Hao gave a simple nod. Yeah, it is. A variation of the cup noodles. It's also delicious. At the word delicious, Yu Shuiyan's ears perked up ever so slightly. A barely noticeable change, but for those who knew her, it was practically a sign of excitement. Lin Yijuan and Xiao Yinfeng finally entered, addressing Hao with a bow. Greetings, Boss Hao. Greetings, Boss. Lin Yijuan, having overheard part of the discussion, approached the shelf with the new instant noodles. Boss Hao, is this the one you mentioned yesterday? Hao simply nodded. Meanwhile, Hua Feishue turned to Yu Shuiyan, holding up the new flavor. Senior sister, do you want to try it? Yu Shuiyan glanced at the package. Let's go with beef first. Then we'll try after. Hua Feishue nodded, putting the cup back on the shelf. The new flavor was certainly interesting, but their minds were still on the beef-flavored instant noodles. Nothing could compare to the enlightenment they had experienced last time. Yu Shuiyan took 2 cups of beef-flavored instant noodles and placed them on the counter to pay. Senior, do you have no intention of raising the price? We can pay more, Yu Shuiyan asked. Hua Feishue immediately backed Yu Shuiyan up. That's right, Senior Hao. You don't have to hold back. If you're worried about us affording it, you don't have to. We'll pay whatever price you set. Hao, however, didn't even need to consult the system for this one. It's 1 crystal, no more, no less. Even if an immortal emperor himself descended and personally begged me to raise the price, I'd still refuse. Was Hao joking? Was he joking? Or was he actually serious? No, looking at his completely straight face, Hao was dead serious. Yu Shuiyan narrowed her eyes slightly. Is Senior testing us? Hua Feishue, on the other hand, had a different thought. This is the mindset of a true expert. Meanwhile, Lin Yijuan and Xiao Yinfeng, who had just finished checking out the new instant noodles, stood behind them, listening in. Lin Yijuan coughed, but Xiao Yinfeng, he was having an existential crisis. Before entering, Xiao Yinfeng had instinctively inspected Hao's cultivation. There was nothing, no spiritual qi, and absolutely 0 traces of cultivation. Yet here Hao was, acting like he sat at the apex of the world. Wait, could it be? There was an old rumor about reclusive monsters in the upper realms who had hidden their cultivation so deeply that they appeared completely mortal. Some even suppressed their realms on purpose to temper their Dao hearts. This Senior Hao is one of them. It was Xiao Yinfeng's first time meeting this so-called Boss Hao, but judging from his words, his demeanor, and the conviction in his voice, there was no doubt about it. This wasn't just any senior. This was a hidden apex existence, a transcendent being who could name his price to even immortal emperors, yet chose to sell instant noodles for 1 crystal. A figure of such caliber had long surpassed the limits of cultivation, utterly unconcerned to worldly wealth. Xiao Yinfeng felt like he had just glimpsed a profound truth. He gulped, standing so straight, like a soldier who had just been scolded by a general. Xiao Yinfeng did not dare to let his thoughts wander any further. He silently placed his beef-flavored instant noodles on the counter. 1 crystal, Hao said casually. Yes, Senior, Xiao Yinfeng blurted, his hands moving with the speed and precision of a well-trained disciple as he handed over the exact amount. Lin Yijuan gave Xiao Yinfeng a strange look, one eyebrow twitching. "What are you doing?" Xiao Yinfeng glared at Lin Yijuan sharply. Was his sworn brother an idiot? This senior could obliterate them with a mere stare. Did Lin Yijuan not see the absolute, unshakable will in his words? A man who refused even an immortal emperor's plea? They had to act right. Lin Yijuan, completely unaware of the storm brewing in Xiao Yinfeng's mind, lazily placed his own cup of beef-flavored instant noodles on the counter and handed over his crystal. Xiao Yinfeng nearly had a heart attack. Too casual, too disrespectful. He felt the overwhelming urge to give Lin Yijuan a good smack on the head. But seeing that the senior showed no reaction to his sworn brother's disgracefully casual behavior, he exhaled in relief. Calamity averted. At least for now. It seemed Senior Hao was truly magnanimous, unwilling to lower himself to punish the ignorant. What a merciful existence. The four of them soon found a spot in the corner, sitting in a neat row as they waited for their instant noodles to cook. Xiao Yinfeng leaned in toward Lin Yijuan. "Brother Yijuan, is this small cup truly the source of your progress?" Xiao Yinfeng had only agreed to come here because of Lin Yijuan's insistence. At first, it sounded absurd, but the truth was undeniable. His sworn brother had actually broken through. When they sparred yesterday, Lin Yijuan manifested sword intent before his very eyes. Xiao Yinfeng himself had already grasped sword intent, but that was because he dedicated his days and nights to wielding his sword. He had bled for it, struggled for it, sacrificed for it. But Lin Yijuan? That rascal would rather travel than train. Xiao Yinfeng knew Lin Yijuan had the potential, but to grasp sword intent in just one day? Unbelievable. He stared at the instant noodles. Could this be the key to his own breakthrough? Was it possible? Could a noodles shatter his bottleneck and propel him into the Saint Realm? Suddenly, an irresistible aroma drifted into Xiao Yinfeng's nose. He looked up and saw that Hua Feishue and Yu Shuiyan had already opened their cups. Theirs are the first to finish cooking. Xiao Yinfeng had heard Lin Yijuan's endless praises about the noodles, but how could something prepared in just 3 minutes be that delicious? It made no sense. However, now that he smelled it himself, his stomach growled. He quickly turned away from Hua Feishue and Yu Shuiyan as they started eating. If he kept watching, he might embarrass himself by drooling. Time passed, and finally his own cup was done. Xiao Yinfeng peeled off the lid, and at that moment, a rich, savory fragrance hit him like a tidal wave. It was addicting. "Brother Yinfeng, you have to stir it first before eating." Lin Yijuan reminded him from the side. Xiao Yinfeng grabbed his chopsticks and stirred the noodles. But as he did, his eyes widened. Qi. There was genuine spiritual qi flowing out of the noodles. His movements subconsciously sped up. He had to mix it properly, making sure every strand of noodle was coated in that heavenly broth. Once satisfied, Xiao Yinfeng lifted a portion with his chopsticks and slurped it down in one go. His expectations did not betray him. A burst of rich, meaty flavor exploded in his mouth. The broth was thick yet smooth, the noodles springy and perfect. The layers of umami were deep, complex, almost divine. Xiao Yinfeng couldn't stop himself. This is incredible. Beside him, Hua Feishue, Yu Shuiyan, and Lin Yijuan all nodded in agreement. They had already experienced the instant noodles yesterday, but somehow it tasted even better today. No words were exchanged after that. The four of them simply sat there, their focus entirely on their cups, the only sound in the store being the synchronized slurping and sipping of their noodles. With the last strand of noodles gone, the store fell deathly quiet. Xiao Yinfeng barely had time to process the delicious aftertaste before an overwhelming sensation swept through him. His eyelids grew heavy, and without thinking, he closed his eyes. Then, boom, an explosion of insight surged through his mind. It was as if a great door had been thrown open, and knowledge, understanding, and pure raw qi poured in like a raging flood. His entire body went rigid as the force of enlightenment wrapped around him, dragging him into a trance. He wasn't alone. The faint sound of a chair creaking told him that the others had succumbed as well. A barely audible gasp from Hua Feishue, the composed breath of Yu Shuiyan, and Lin Yiju in silence. One by one, they had all fallen into the same state. Their surroundings faded. The noise of the store, the soft sound of Hao wiping the counter, it all vanished. Xiao Yinfeng felt as if he were floating in a vast, endless space, weightless and free. His mind became impossibly clear. The sword intent within him roared, reacting to unknown invisible force, sharpening, refining, strengthening. He didn't know how long he remained like this. Seconds? Minutes? Time had lost all meaning. Then, all at once, the energy in his body surged. His meridians stretched, his chi expanded, and something snapped. Crack! A shackle, one that had kept him bound for ages, shattered to pieces. Xiao Yinfeng's body trembled. No way. His cultivation was rising, no, breaking through. The bottleneck that had plagued him for so long was completely broken. His realm soared to new heights, breaking past its limits in an instant. Saint Realm. Xiao Yinfeng's eyes burst open, but he wasn't the only one. Across from him, Yu Shuiyan's cold expression had vanished. She had nearly broken through to the third stage of the Saint Realm. Even with her talent, this should have taken at least a month. Yet, she had achieved it in under an hour. Hua Feishue gripped the table, breathing rapidly from sheer excitement. She had advanced to the fifth stage of the Saint Apprentice realm. Lin Yijuan, despite having experienced this once before, looked just as dazed. His cultivation had skyrocketed once again, placing him at the fifth stage of the Saint Apprentice realm. They all looked at each other. Drawn by the same thought, they turned toward the man behind the counter. Hao met their stares with an easygoing face, arms crossed. Good noodles, right? Xiao Yinfeng was the first to react. He abruptly stood up, nearly knocking over his chair, and cupped his fist before giving a deep bow. Thank you so much for your guidance, Senior, he declared loudly. I have stepped into the Saint Realm thanks to your help. Lin Yijuan flinched. His sworn brother's action made him want to dig a hole and disappear. But at the same time, he couldn't blame him. Stepping into the Saint Realm was a monumental moment, something that could take cultivators years or even decades. He understood why Xiao Yinfeng was acting this way, even if it was a little embarrassing. Lin Yijuan sighed, but eventually followed suit. Thank you for the guidance, boss. Hua Feishue, as expected, jumped in with her usual enthusiasm. You have my deepest gratitude, Senior Hao. The noodles are really beyond amazing. If it weren't for your noodles, I wouldn't have progressed this fast. Yu Xian, quieter as always, simply bowed. Thank you, Senior. With the formalities out of the way, Hua Feishue had already set her sights on the new chicken-flavored instant noodles. She grabbed 2 cups from the shelf. The price was the same as the beef noodles, 1 crystal each. After Hao scanned the items, she and Yu Xuan immediately got to preparing them, following the same steps as before. Meanwhile, Xiao Yinfeng was still struggling to process everything. Not only had he reached the Saint Realm, but was he mistaken? His foundation already felt completely stable. Normally, one needed time to adjust after a breakthrough, yet he felt no signs of instability at all. What in the heavens? Just how powerful are the beef-flavored instant noodles? As if seeking further proof, Xiao Yinfeng reached for another cup of beef-flavored instant noodles and brought it to the counter. Hao gave Lin Yijuan a lazy, indifferent look. Lin Yijuan blinked. That look. Wait. Oh no. Hao sighed, looking like he was dealing with an ignorant child. He raised his hand, pointing toward the large board on the wall. Xiao Yinfeng followed his finger and instantly felt as if the world had crumbled before him. Rule number 1. Daily limits are absolute. His hand trembled. His excitement drained away. He couldn't buy another legendary instant noodle today. Hao shook his head. You could buy again tomorrow. Xiao Yinfeng opened his mouth but closed it again. This was torture. Lin Yijuan patted Xiao Yinfeng's back. I should have warned you. Feeling dejected, Xiao Yinfeng could only step aside. With nothing else to do, Lin Yijuan made his way over. Chicken-flavored instant noodles. But before he could reach them, something caught his eye. In the glass shelf, Lin Yijuan spotted small red cans neatly displayed in rows. Frowning, he opened the glass door and grabbed one. A cool sensation ran through his fingers. He examined the can closely before turning to Hao. "Boss, what is this?" Hao glanced at Lin Yijuan. "Cola, a soft drink." "Cola? Soft drink?" Lin Yijuan had never heard of such a thing, but from the owner's answer, it had to be some kind of drink. His attention landed on the price tag below the cans. 3 crystals. Lin Yijuan squinted back and forth, checking again just to be sure. No mistake. The price was real. There was no way the owner had mispriced it. If anything, it had to be special. Otherwise, why would it be more expensive than the instant noodles, which could directly enhance one's cultivation? Lin Yijuan grabbed one, alongside with the 2 cups of chicken-flavored instant noodles, and walked to the counter, placing 5 crystals down for payment. He led Xiao Lianfeng to pour hot water into their instant noodles before they sat in their usual corner. Xiao Lianfeng, still sulking over the daily limit, looked like he had lost all purpose in life. His eyes were dull as he stared blankly at the table. Then, from the corner of his eye, he noticed Lin Yijuan holding a small red can with a silver top. It was nothing like the usual gourd-shaped bottles or jade flasks used for beverages in the cultivation world. "Brother Yijuan, what's that?" "It's called cola." Xiao Lianfeng sat up slightly. "Cola?" That was the first time he had ever heard of such a drink. "How much was it?" Lin Yijuan raised a hand and casually showed 3 fingers. "3 what? Gold? That's cheap. I should get one too." "No. 3 crystals." Xiao Lianfeng. "What?" He jumped up in shock. "You paid 3 crystals for that?" "Yeah." Lin Yijuan didn't even look at him, completely focused on the can. Xiao Lianfeng clutched his chest, feeling like he had just been stabbed. 3 crystals for a drink. That was nearly double the price of instant noodles. What kind of heavenly nectar was inside that can? Lin Yijuan turned the can in his hand. No corks, no stoppers, just a strange golden tab on top. He was trying to figure out how to open it. Noticing the small groove underneath the tab, he hooked his finger under it and pulled. Pop! TSSDT. A sharp, fizzy sound escaped as tiny bubbles rushed to the surface. Lin Yijuan flinched slightly, not expecting such a reaction. A crisp aroma spread in the air. It was unlike anything he had ever smelled. It carried a refreshing and slightly sweet scent. He cautiously brought the can to his nose and took a whiff. His brows lifted slightly. This scent, it was revitalizing. Finally, unable to resist his curiosity any longer, Lin Yijuan took a small sip. The moment the liquid touched his tongue, fizz! Tiny bubbles danced across his tongue, tickling his senses. Sweet, but not overwhelming. Cold, but smooth. The richness lingered, coating his throat with an oddly satisfying aftertaste. It was entrancing. Cold, sweet, bubbly. A chill spread through his body, energizing him from the inside out. Before Lin Yijuan even realized it, he took another sip, then another. He couldn't stop. Soon, Lin Yijuan tilted the can upward and chugged the rest down in one go. As the last drop of cola went down his throat, a sudden tension spread through Lin Yijuan's body. A mysterious energy was making its way within his limbs. It wasn't qi, yet it flowed smoothly through his meridians, strengthening them. His senses became unnaturally sharp. He could see clearer, every detail around him becoming crisp. His hearing sharpened. The bubbling of hot water, the rustle of fabric, even the sound of Xiao Lianfeng blinking Lin Yijuan could hear. But what truly startled him was his body's response. His muscles felt lighter, more responsive. When he raised his hand, it moved faster than expected, as if his body was reacting before he even finished the thought. His qi circulation had nearly doubled in speed. If Lin Yijuan entered a fight right now, he was sure he could react before his opponent even finished their attack. He stared at the empty can in his hand. This drink, what exactly did he just consume? Lin Yijuan placed the empty can down and stood up. Brother Lianfeng, let's spar. Close combat, no qi. Xiao Lianfeng blinked. Huh? Xiao Lianfeng glanced at Lin Yijuan like he had just grown another head. Was Lin Yijuan serious? Even without chi, Lin Yijuan wasn't his match in pure hand-to-hand combat. Did drinking that strange liquid mess with his head? Still, Xiao Yinfeng wasn't one to refuse a good fight, especially when he needed something to vent his frustrations on. He clenched his fists, recalling the pain of being told he had to wait until tomorrow to buy another cup of beef-flavored instant noodles. Fine, don't cry after losing. Lin Yijuan didn't reply. Instead, he walked straight to the door. Xiao Yinfeng clicked his tongue, stretching his shoulders as he followed Lin Yijuan outside. Through the glass wall of the store, Hao, Hua Feishue, and Yu Shuyan watched the two step into the open space. Hua Feishue watched them take their positions and scoffed. What is Lin Yijuan thinking? He's just going to get beaten up for sure, right, senior sister? Yu Shuyan didn't answer immediately. Logically speaking, she should agree with Hua Feishue. Under normal circumstances, Lin Yijuan had no chance of beating Xiao Lianfeng in close combat. The gap between them was obvious. But for some reason, Yu Shuyan hesitated. Her gaze flickered to the empty red can on the table. Could it be because of the new product? Something had changed in Lin Yijuan after he drank it. Yu Shuyan had sensed it. The way his aura subtly shifted. There was no way Lin Yijuan would suddenly request a spar if he knew he was going to lose. Hua Feishue, seeing Yu Shuyan deep in thought, tilted her head. Senior sister? Yu Shuyan shook herself from her thoughts and turned back to the spar. Something's different, Yu Shuyan murmured. Hua Feishue. Yu Shuyan didn't elaborate. Let's watch. Outside of the dimensional convenience store. Brother Yijuan, I don't want people saying I bullied you. How about I give you a handicap? Lin Yijuan's eyes twitched. I don't need it. Xiao Lianfeng grinned. Are you sure? I just broke through to the Saint Realm. My strength has risen quite a bit. Even without chi, my body is much tougher than yours. Lin Yijuan remained silent. Xiao Lianfeng smirked. All right. No need to get all serious. How about this? I want to attack with my full strength. No need. Xiao Lianfeng paused. Lin Yijuan calmly took his stance. Just fight me seriously. Xiao Lianfeng sighed. Fine. But don't blame me if you go flying. He stepped forward and cupped his fists. Lin Yijuan returned the gesture. The spar had began. Xiao Lianfeng didn't hesitate. His foot slammed into the ground, and he lunged forward, fist swinging toward Lin Yijuan's chest. His breaking current fist art was relentless. A single punch would be followed by another, flowing like crashing waves, drowning the opponent in force. But the moment Xiao Lianfeng's punch was about to land, Lin Yijuan moved. His body twisted at an unnatural speed, flowing like water. His shoulder barely avoided the strike, and before Xiao Lianfeng could chain his next attack, Lin Yijuan was already repositioning, circling around him. Xiao Lianfeng's pupils shrank. What was that speed? Xiao Lianfeng pivoted, throwing another punch. Lin Yijuan dodged again, weaving through his attacks with almost inhuman precision. Lin Yijuan's footwork was light, unpredictable. It was like trying to punch a shadow. Lin Yijuan's flowing river fist art was always difficult to counter, but right now, it felt downright slippery. Xiao Lianfeng gritted his teeth and increased his speed. His fists became a blur, a relentless barrage of blows meant to corner Lin Yijuan. Yet, dodge. Lin Yijuan flowed between the attacks like a river slipping through cracks. His mind barely had time to process it, but his body reacted on its own. The strange energy from the cola sharpened his senses beyond normal limits. Xiao Lianfeng's muscle tensed before a strike. He already knew where the attack would go. The angle of Xiao Lianfeng's step shifted. Lin Yijuan's body moved before his mind even registered the danger. His reaction time was halved. It was like seeing the fight in slow motion. And then, Lin Yijuan countered. His fist shot out like a whip, striking Xiao Lianfeng's side. Bang! Xiao Lianfeng staggered. His face twisted in shock. Lin Yijuan had never hit him that hard before. Lin Yijuan didn't let up. He pressed forward, his fists flowing like an endless current. His strikes weren't as powerful, but they were relentless, one after another, pushing Xiao Lianfeng back. Xiao Lianfeng quickly steadied himself and raised his arms, blocking Lin Yijuan's punches. Even though Lin Yijuan was faster, the sheer strength of a Saint Realm cultivator gave Xiao Lianfeng an advantage. A fist came toward his face. Xiao Lianfeng tilted his head, barely avoiding it. His hair ruffled from the force. He narrowed his eyes. If this kept up, Lin Yijuan was actually going to win. Xiao Lianfeng clenched his fists. No way. He planted his foot into the ground and twisted his body. His fist roared forward like a crashing wave. Lin Yijuan reacted. His body moved to dodge. But this time, it wasn't fast enough. Boom! Lin Yijuan's world spun. The next thing he knew, he was skidding across the ground, rolling until he finally stopped. Dust settled around him. Silence. Hua Feishua winced. Oof, that looked painful. Almost. Yu Shuiyan commented. Lin Yijuan groaned and sat up, rubbing his jaw. Xiao Lianfeng stood there, panting slightly. His expression was complicated. Xiao Lianfeng stared at Lin Yijuan. How did you do that? Xiao Lianfeng was strong. That was undeniable. With his recent breakthrough into the Saint Realm, his body had been refined to a whole new level. Even without using qi, he was confident that his physical abilities alone were leagues ahead of Lin Yijuan's. This spar should have been completely one-sided. Yet Lin Yijuan had kept up. No, more than that. He had dodged and countered his attacks. For a moment, Xiao Lianfeng had felt the pressure of a real fight. It didn't make sense. Lin Yijuan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked down at his hand, flexing his fingers. That was the fastest he had ever been in his life. The most fluid. The most natural. He reacted with more precision than he thought possible. His attacks had flowed effortlessly, as if his body had been forged for battle. He had fought against a Saint Realm cultivator. And for a moment, he kept up. If anyone else had told Lin Yijuan this, he would have laughed in their face. But he had just experienced it himself. No one would believe it unless they saw it with their own eyes. Lin Yijuan snapped back to reality as Xiao Lianfeng stepped forward, extending a hand toward him. You okay, Brother Yijuan? Lin Yijuan let out a breath before smiling. Yeah. He grasped Xiao Lianfeng's hand, allowing him to pull him back to his feet. Dusting himself off, he glanced toward the store. Let's go back inside first. Inside the store, the group gathered once more. Hua Feishua looked at Lin Yijuan, eyes shining with curiosity. Lin Yijuan ignored her. Lin Yijuan exhaled and finally spoke. It was the cola. Xiao Lianfeng raised a brow. The drink. Lin Yijuan nodded. It boosted my reaction time. Maybe nearly twice or exactly twice. He clenched his fists. My body moved before I even finished thinking. I've never felt anything like it. The others were stunned. A temporary boost? Yu Shuiyan muttered. Lin Yijuan crossed his arms. It has to be. There's no way an effect this strong would be permanent. Even the best Saint-grade pills can't do something like this. No, this might even be on par with heavenly grade ones. Hua Feishua gawked. Wait, what? That little can of black liquid? Lin Yijuan turned to the counter. Boss, how long does the effect last? Oh, so that's the effect of the cola. Huh. How had drunk one himself earlier, but it hadn't done anything to him. But then again, after what happened with the beef-flavored instant noodles, he wasn't surprised anymore. System. How long does the effect of cola last? The effect lasts for 10 minutes, host. How relayed the information? 10 minutes. The store fell silent. 10 minutes? Hua Feishua repeated blankly. Even 5 minutes would have been absurd, but 10? A single breath could decide a battle between cultivators. A moment of hesitation could determine life or death. If someone's reaction speed doubled for even a minute, they could completely overwhelm an opponent. 10 minutes was enough to turn the tide of a fight, no matter how dire the situation. This thing is absurd, Xiao Lianfeng muttered, staring at the empty can of cola. What about side effects of the cola, boss? Lin Yijuan asked. Lin Yijuan's mind was already running through possibilities. An effect this powerful shouldn't come without a cost. For example, will his body weaken afterward? Will his reaction time drop below normal once the boost fades? Or maybe he thought of a few more guesses, all reasonable from a cultivator's perspective. Any pill that could provide such an extreme boost always carried some kind of price. Even legendary heavenly grade pills required careful use, or they could cause permanent damage to one's foundation. Still, no matter the drawback, as long as it didn't harm his cultivation, Lin Yijuan knew he would still take the cola without hesitation. In the state he had undergone, his combat ability had spiked to a completely different level. A cultivator's realm wasn't everything in battle. Skill, experience, and technique mattered. But when raw speed and reaction time were increased to this degree, against a stronger opponent, the cola could turn the impossible into possible. If an enemy underestimated him because of his cultivation realm, they would suffer for it. Nice question. Yu Shuiyan gave Lin Yijuan a thumbs up in her mind. Side effects. System, are there any? How asked anyway, despite already having a feeling there wouldn't be. Indeed, host. You are correct. There are no side effects from consuming the cola. Why would there be? The product sold in the dimensional convenience store always stands above all others, unrivaled across countless worlds. Inferior items may come with drawbacks, but our store's goods? They are perfection itself. How couldn't help but chuckle? There it is. The system's usual over-the-top confidence. Yeah, that's more like it, system. If only I could actually enjoy the effects of our products myself. That would be perfect. The system stayed silent. Hao shook his head. Truly unfair. Did the store owner just laugh? Before they could dwell on it further, Hao spoke. There's no such thing as side effects in the cola. It's not some low-quality product with drawbacks. Only those come with a price. Well, it does only last for 10 minutes, though. The four were stunned. No side effects? Only for 10 minutes. Only? Lin Yijuan was the first to react. He scratched his head, looking skeptical. Boss, I don't mean to doubt you, but that doesn't make sense. I mean, something this powerful should have a drawback, right? At the very least, shouldn't there be a small one? Like a tiny price to pay? Hua Feishua waved her hands dramatically. Right. Even the best heavenly grade pills have side effects if taken too often. That's why no one dares to abuse them. And this is even stronger than that. Senior Hao, there's just no way. Every medicinal pill followed the principle of balance. Power always came with a cost. Even legendary elixirs couldn't escape this rule. At least, that's what the book said, from what Yu Shuiyan could recall. Was the senior truly saying the cola defies that logic? Hao shrugged. It is what it is. You'll understand once you try it. Silence. Hua Feishue, Yu Shuiyan, and Xiao Lianfeng turned to Lin Yijuan at the same time. Lin Yijuan blinked. Why are you all looking at me? The three exchanged glances. Without another word, they each stepped forward and bought their own can of cola. By the time they returned to their seats, Lin Yijuan had already opened his cup. The smell of chicken-flavored instant noodles filled the air, thick and rich with the scent of chicken. They quickly peeled open their own lids. Steam rose, carrying the warm and savory aroma. The broth shone with golden oil, and as they stirred with their chopsticks, soft pieces of chicken floated among the noodles. Hua Feishue took her first bite. Her chopsticks paused in midair. The broth soaked into the noodles perfectly. The taste was deep but not heavy, warm but not overwhelming. The rich flavor of chicken spread through her mouth, far better than any ordinary dish should be. But more than that, she felt a faint surge of spiritual qi. Hua Feishue narrowed her eyes as she swallowed. Spiritual qi again? Lin Yijuan was already on his second bite. Did you forget where we are? Yu Shuiyan didn't speak, but the way her chopsticks moved faster told the whole story. Xiao Lianfeng sighed in defeat. If only we could buy more than one of these. Yu Shuiyan calmly picked up a small piece of chicken with her chopsticks. Steam curled up from it, still piping hot. The piece was small, as expected from instant noodles, but the meat looked tender and juicy. She placed it in her mouth and chewed. The chicken pulled apart easily, releasing a rich and savory flavor. The light oils coated her tongue, making the taste even better. It was soft, well-seasoned, and blended perfectly with the broth. Before the four knew it, they had quietly finished their noodles, sinking into a silent state once more. Another enlightenment? How observed. Correct, host. The chicken-flavored instant noodles provide the same benefits as the beef version, but with a distinct taste, perfect for those who prefer a lighter, yet savory flavor. Hal leaned back, watching the four remain completely absorbed in their enlightenment. I don't think the flavors matter that much if the instant noodles can give them enlightenment. Even if someone preferred beef over chicken or vice versa, did it really make a difference when both could push them toward breakthroughs? No matter their taste preferences, they would still buy both. Time passed. The store stayed quiet. No new customers arrived, and the four only recently regained consciousness. Their gains were ridiculous. Hua Fei Shue, 5th stage of Saint Apprentice Realm, 6th stage. Comprehended a low Saint rank technique, Winter Lotus. Lin Yijuan, 5th stage of Saint Apprentice Realm, 6th stage. Learn a low Saint rank technique, Whispering Tidal Slash. Yu Xuyin, 2nd stage of Saint Realm, 3rd stage. Gain deeper insight into her newly learned Peak Spirit rank technique, Thousand Snow Sword Dance. Xiao Yinfeng, advanced from around 60% to 65% progress toward the 2nd stage of Saint Realm. Gained his first Peak Spirit rank technique, Titan's Wrath. In any other situation, this level of progress would have been absurd. Even in top-tier sects with the best resources and personal guidance from elders, reaching such advancements could take months or even years. Cultivation required accumulation, effort, and time. Even geniuses had to face bottlenecks. Yet here they were, breaking through realms and comprehending high-level techniques as if it were nothing. Not from meditating under a 1,000-year-old spiritual tree. Not from consuming priceless treasures, but from eating instant noodles in a convenience store. In just a single cup of noodles, they had achieved breakthroughs beyond their wildest imagination. The four bowed sincerely toward Hao, expressing their utmost gratitude. Xiao Yinfeng, the most straightforward among them, even bowed twice. By now, Hao was getting used to this kind of treatment. He simply waved his hand. Yeah, enough of that. Just as the atmosphere settled, a soft voice broke the moment. Senior, are we allowed to take cola outside the store? It was Yu Xuyan. She gestured toward the wall, where a simple wooden board hung with neatly written rules. Rule number 3, store-bound products. Certain products cannot be taken outside. Any attempt to do so will result in automatic retrieval. Rule number 4, bound by purchase. Once purchased, a product is tied to its owner. Sharing it with others will render its effects useless. You may pay for someone else, but they must be present in the store, and the item will be bound to them immediately. The three followed Yu Xuyan's finger. There were more rules? Hua Feishu muttered. Lin Yijuan frowned. I remember the first two, but these... Xiao Yinfeng scratched his head. The board itself looked ordinary, blending into the background of the store. But the rules written on it were anything but simple. After rereading them, the four quickly understood their purpose. The daily limit and no refunds rules were already strict, but these two added another layer of control. Unlike ordinary markets or auction houses, a store that sold items capable of directly increasing cultivation had to be extremely careful. If customers could walk out with these items freely, powerful sects and families would simply send disciples to buy them in bulk, hoarding everything for themselves. If products could be resold, those with deep pockets could buy everything and mark up the price, making the store's goods inaccessible to ordinary cultivators. And if items could be shared, the rich and powerful could simply pass them around, ignoring the store's limits entirely. In the cultivation world, anything that increased cultivation speed was priceless. If the store didn't enforce these restrictions, it wouldn't take long before greedy sects started exploiting loopholes, ruining everything. This makes sense. Even ancient sects and hidden clans have their own secret inheritance grounds, only allowing those chosen to enter. This is no different. Xiao Yinfeng explained. While they were busy processing this, Hao simply stared. The store had rules like that. He was sure he had read them before, but somehow these two completely slipped his mind. Can cola be taken outside? System? Yes, host. Cola is one of the approved products that can be taken out of the store. As long as the buyer does not attempt to transfer ownership to another person, Rule number 4 will not be enforced. How relayed the answer to Yu Shuiyan. Cola can be taken outside. Just don't give it to someone else, or it'll lose its effects. Hearing how, Yu Shuiyan revealed a rare, faint smile. Xiao Yinfeng and Lin Yijuan, who happened to witness it, felt their hearts skip a beat. Xiao Yinfeng took a deep breath, his expression as serious as a monk rejecting worldly desires. Senior, what about the instant noodles? Can it be taken outside? A thought had already formed in his mind. If possible, he wanted to show the instant noodles to the sect elders and even the sect master. How asked the system? No host. Instant noodles are not permitted to be taken outside. They must be consumed within the store. How repeated the system's words. Xiao Yinfeng's excitement dimmed. He had expected as much, but the answer still left him disappointed. Some elders of the Drifting Sword sect were stubborn, unwilling to believe anything without solid proof. If he simply told them about the effects of the instant noodles, they would doubt his words or even grow suspicious of the store itself. Now, he had no choice but to bring at least one elder with him. Only by experiencing it firsthand would they understand how miraculous the noodles truly were. Xiao Yinfeng shook off his thoughts and looked at Yu Shuiyan and Hua Fei Shue. A confident grin spread across his face as he raised his can of cola. Senior Yu, Junior Hua, do you want to go hunt demonic beasts? Demonic beasts were creatures corrupted by demonic qi, their minds consumed by aggression and bloodlust. Unlike spiritual beasts, which could be raised and cultivated alongside humans, demonic beasts knew only violence, attacking anything in their path. They thrived on slaughter, growing stronger by devouring others, their power fueled by chaos and destruction. Hua Fei Shue and Yu Shuiyan immediately understood Xiao Lianfeng's intent. With their breakthroughs, they had become much stronger. And with Cola's temporary boost, hunting demonic beasts would not only be easier, but also far more rewarding. The risk of death would still exist, but that was simply part of life as a cultivator. More importantly, with the four of them working together, even if Cola's effects lasted only 10 minutes, it was more than enough for them to handle beasts above their level. They had confidence in themselves. Demonic beasts were valuable. Their cores could be exchanged for crystals, their hides could be used for armor, and their blood could be refined into medicinal pills. This was a perfect opportunity to earn resources while testing their newly acquired strength. Hua Fei Shue turned to Yu Shuiyan and sent a mental transmission. Senior sister, do you want to come? I really want to test my new techniques. Besides, it's been a while since we've hunted together. Yu Shuiyan gave a short nod. All right. Hua Fei Shue smiled and turned to Xiao Yinfeng. We're in. Xiao Yinfeng nodded in satisfaction. He then turned to Lin Yijuan. You're coming too, right, Brother Yijuan? Lin Yijuan stretched his arms lazily and grinned. Of course. He also wanted to test his new strength. More than that, he wanted to earn more crystals. For some reason, he had a strong feeling that the senior would introduce even more products in the future. And if that happened, he needed to have enough resources to afford them. Who knew how expensive they would be? But considering what he had experienced so far, they would definitely be more than worth their price. This was free crystals on the table. Only an idiot would walk away. With the discussion settled, the four bade farewell to Hao and left the store. Hao's eyes lingered on their departing figures before the door clicked shut. Hunting beasts, huh? That sounds exciting. With nothing else to do, he checked his mission progress. Main task, sell 20 cups of instant noodles. 10 of 20. Side task 1, accumulate 30 crystals from cola. 12 of 30. Side task 2, hire your first employee. You weren't planning to do everything yourself, right? 0 of 1. Requirement. The employee must be at least Heavenly King realm or higher. The system will automatically detect individuals within the vicinity who meet the requirements. Hao nodded. He was already halfway to completing the main task and the first side task. If business kept up, he could finish them tomorrow or the day after. As for the second side task, he had no clue. The system hadn't notified him of anyone who met the requirement. Even if a Heavenly King realm cultivator did appear, there was no guarantee they would be willing to work as his employee. With no new customers coming in, the store remained quiet. Meanwhile, Xiao Lianfeng, Lin Yijuan, Hua Feishue, and Yu Shuiyan had long arrived at their destination, Blackstone Forest. The four flew deeper into the forest on their swords, gliding above the dense canopy. Towering trees with dark, stone-like trunks stretched endlessly below them, casting long shadows across the land. It was clear why the forest was called Blackstone. The eerie silence was occasionally broken by the distant roars of demonic beasts. Along the way, they passed several beasts, but none were worth hunting. They were far too weak. Wasting time on them would be pointless. Their goal was stronger prey. Not long after, Yu Shuyan, who was leading the group, suddenly narrowed her eyes. "Stop!" The others immediately halted. Yu Shuyan's spiritual sense had detected a group of demonic beasts up ahead. One lesser grand demonic beast. Two peak elite demonic beasts. Two greater elite demonic beasts. She didn't waste words. After a brief pause, she continued, giving instructions. Junior Xiao, handle the peak elites. Junior Sister, Junior Lin, take one greater elite each. I'll deal with the lesser grand. Once you're done, assist the others if needed. All right, Senior Yu. Works for me. Lin Yijuan replied. Xiao Lianfeng gave a firm nod, his fighting spirit igniting. Understood. Hua Feishue grinned excitedly. I was hoping for a warm-up. Seeing that they were all ready, Yu Shuyan issued a final command. I'll go first. Follow behind. If anything seems unusual, we reassess. If it's too dangerous, we retreat. Should we drink our cola now? Hua Feishue suddenly asked. Xiao Lianfeng shook his head. No need. We should be able to handle this without it. Cola's effect lasts only for a few minutes. If we use it now, it'll be wasted. We should save it for when we really need it. Xiao Lianfeng's reasoning was clear, and the others acknowledged his point. With their plans set, Yu Shuyan raised her hand, sending a faint ripple through the air. A soft mist of translucent petals spread around them, shimmering faintly under the light. Xiao Lianfeng's brows furrowed slightly. The petals swirled in a slow, mesmerizing dance, as if a gentle breeze had carried them along. But he wasn't fooled by their beauty. Beneath their elegance, Xiao Lianfeng could sense their true purpose, distorting vision and suppressing presence. He sent a mental transmission to Lin Yijuan. Brother Yijuan, this is Veil of Falling Petals, right? Lin Yijuan, who had been watching the petals drift, nodded. Yeah, it is. Pretty, isn't it? That's not the point. Xiao Lianfeng replied bluntly. I know. It's a high saint rank concealment technique from the snow petal sect. A real hassle to deal with if you're on the receiving end. Xiao Lianfeng wasn't surprised that Lin Yijuan knew. Unlike him, who immersed himself in tireless practice, Lin Yijuan wasn't as obsessed with combat. But when it came to knowledge of techniques, formations, and cultivation methods, Lin Yijuan was rarely wrong. Lin Yijuan stretched. Still, using this before a hunt? Cold-faced Senior Yu sure is meticulous. Xiao Lianfeng ignored him, his attention already shifting back to the surroundings. As the petals settled, he instinctively suppressed his spiritual qi, making himself as unnoticeable as possible. The others did the same. Yu Shuyan, still silent, took the lead, her flying sword soaring forward. The three followed closely behind, their figures blending into the mist of petals. The hunt had begun. As they descended toward their targets, all four remained on high alert. They had already detected the demonic beasts ahead, but the beasts likely sensed them as well. Demonic beasts were cunning by nature. They might appear relaxed, but it could be nothing more than a well-laid trap. The group advanced cautiously, minimizing any sound. Suddenly, Hua Feishue's voice echoed in their minds. Netherbone wolves. Ahead of them, the demonic beasts came into view. The largest among them was a towering figure of bone-white fur, nearly the size of a war elephant. Its jagged spine jutted out like a row of uneven spears, and every breath it exhaled carried a corrosive mist. Surrounding it were four smaller wolves, each the size of a horse, their ash-gray fur blending into the shadows. Their fangs dripped with a thick, black saliva, sizzling as it hit the ground, leaving small, eroded marks wherever it landed. That lesser grand is going to be trouble, Lin Yijuan muttered. Xiao Yinfeng's grip on his bulky sword tightened. The peak elites and greater elites are no pushovers either. Don't get careless. The Netherbone wolves hadn't noticed them yet, or if they had, they were pretending not to. Their ears twitched now and then, eyes half-lidded as if uninterested, but none of the four lowered their guard. These were sly demonic beasts, known for laying ambushes and baiting overconfident prey. Yu Shuiyan sent a single thought to the group. Move into position. We strike first. With silent understanding, they dispersed, inching closer to their marks. Yu Shuiyan's sword glowed with a chilling light as she raised it. A cold aura expanded, making the surroundings feel like the heart of winter. Thousand sword dance. In an instant, swords of ice and light materialized around her. They hovered for a breath, then shot forward like a storm, aiming to pierce through the Netherbone wolves before they could react. The lesser grand Netherbone wolf let out a deep, rumbling growl. Its fur bristled, and a thick mist erupted from its body. The mist formed a barrier, absorbing the impact of Yu Shuiyan's attack. The storm of swords clashed against the mist, some cutting through, but losing momentum before they could land a fatal hit. Lin Yijuan clicked his tongue. It's using a chi mist to block attacks. That thing's not going to be easy to kill. Xiao Lianfeng didn't wait. He had no patience for defensive games. His bulky sword let out a deep hum as he swung it forward, his strength causing the air to crack. Titan's wrath. His sword smashed into the ground, unleashing a shockwave that tore through the earth, carving a direct path toward the wolves. The four smaller Netherbone wolves reacted instantly. Their bodies flickered as they used Nether Step, leaving behind afterimages that burst into black bone dust. The dust spread through the air, turning the battlefield into a murky haze. Hua Feishue covered her nose. Ugh, this is annoying. The Netherbone wolves didn't just dodge, they retaliated. Their mouth opened, and a high-pitched howls filled the air. Bone spikes erupted from their backs, shooting toward the group. Hua Feishue's hands glowed with cold light as she clapped them together. Winter Lotus! A lotus of ice bloomed around them, its petals overlapping to form a sturdy barrier. The bone shards struck the lotus, embedding into its frozen layers. For a moment, it held strong, but then a sharp crack echoed through the air. The lotus shattered. Splinters of ice flew in all directions as the bone shards broke through, forcing the group to react. Yu Shuiyan stepped forward, a thin layer of frost spreading from her feet. With a flick of her wrist, she deflected the remaining bone shards before they could reach anyone. Lin Yijuan didn't hesitate. His sword shone with a faint blue glow as he dashed forward, his movements as fluid as water. Whispering tidal slash, his sword cut through the mist. He targeted one of the peak elite Netherbone wolves. The wolf dodged, but Lin Yijuan's attack curved unnaturally, following its movement like a relentless tide. The blade slashed across its side, drawing a deep wound. The injured wolf snarled, but before it could counter, Hua Feishue appeared beside it. Her palms glowed with white light as she launched a barrage of strikes. Petal Snow Palm. Each hit landed with force, her palms leaving behind frost where they struck. The wolf howled as its body stiffened from a cold. Xiao Yinfeng focused on the two greater elite wolves. His sword descended like a falling mountain, heavy and unstoppable. The wolves tried to dodge, but Xiao Yinfeng adjusted his grip mid-swing, twisting his blade at the last moment. A sharp arc of sword light cut across, slamming into both wolves and sending them crashing into the ground. Nearby, the others were either finishing their battles or had already done so. The only one left was the true threat, the lesser grand Netherbone wolf. Yu Shuiyan's cold gaze remained locked onto the massive beast. She raised her sword again. A deep, chilling howl suddenly erupted from the lesser grand Netherbone wolf's throat. The nearly dead Netherbone wolves on the ground twitched violently. Black chi seeped from their wounds, spreading like ink in water. Their broken bodies mended, their injuries vanishing as if they had never existed. Their eyes, once filled with rage, turned hollow, soulless yet overflowing with killing intent. Lin Yijuan narrowed his eyes. So, it had this ability? Withering ignition. Lin Yijuan, explain. Yu Shuiyin ordered. Lin Yijuan answered right away. It's a rare ability that only matured netherbone wolves can use. It forcibly restores their bodies and their pack members, making them stronger each time. Every revival hardens their bones, making them faster, tougher, and harder to kill. The more they revive, the deadlier they become. Hua Feishue clicked her tongue. TCH. That's annoying. What about the cost? Lin Yijuan shrugged. Their lifespan. But to a demonic beast in battle. Does that even matter? Yu Shuiyin observed the wolves without a hint of concern. A plan had already taken shape in her mind. Good. Then treat this as training. Learn to wield your new strength properly. Yu Shuiyin's tone left no room for debate. The instant noodles from Senior How had given them a significant jump and even stabilized their cultivation, but power alone meant nothing. If they couldn't control it in real combat, their strength was useless. Rapid breakthroughs could turn into shackles if they lacked control. And if they couldn't push themselves now, when would they? This was a great chance to hone their newly gained power. The change in the netherbone wolves was obvious. Their bodies had been restored, their fur bristling with vitality. But it wasn't enough. In the moments that followed, the group adapted to their strength with every passing second. Lin Yijuan was smooth. With a swipe, his sword cut through the neck of a revitalized netherbone wolf, sending its head flying. Hua Feishue spun around, her palm striking with lightning speed. The netherbone wolf attempted to evade, dodging a few of her strikes, but one palm landed squarely against its side. A shockwave rippled through its frame as the impact crushed its ribs, causing the beast to crumple to the earth. Yu Shuiyin's eyes never left the lesser grand netherbone wolf, noting all of its actions. The creature's body blurred as it used its speed to leave behind afterimages, attempting to confuse her. She paused momentarily, but quickly snapped back, avoiding the attacks. The wolf struck with its claws, elongated into jagged black blades. The first strike missed, but the second tore through her side, spreading a black rot through her flesh. Yu Shuiyin's immediately froze the rot with a burst of ice, keeping it from spreading further. She retaliated with a series of slashes. But the wolf wasn't finished. It leaped back, launching bone shards in every direction. Yu Shuiyin raised her sword, deflecting the spikes with a sharp ring as they struck her barrier. The wolf growled, charging at her once more with another bone-shattering strike. Yu Shuiyin twisted her body, narrowly avoiding the blow, and in one fluid motion, she struck, her sword cutting deep into the wolf's throat. It staggered but didn't fall. With a final roar, the beast lunged again. But this time, Yu Shuiyin's strike was faster, a perfect cut through the wolf's neck. Its head rolled to the floor. Xiao Yinfeng launched a crushing kick to one of the remaining wolves, sending the beast tumbling. Too slow, his eyes already locking onto last wolf. His sword flashed, cleaving the last wolf in a single blow. The beast fell with a resounding thud. That's what I'm talking about. The stronger the opponent, the more satisfying the fight. Hua Feishue rushed to Yu Shuiyin's side. Senior sister, you're hurt. Hua Feishue held out her hand, a soft blue glow emanating from her palm, her spiritual qi flowing into the wound. Yu Shuiyin reached into her storage ring and withdrew a vial filled with a golden elixir. She poured the liquid over the wound. It hissed as it touched the skin, the golden elixir quickly absorbing into the gash, sealing it shut. Yu Shuiyin looked at her group. Xiao Lianfeng, who had been observing her from the side, stepped forward. Senior Yu, how is it? All healed. As the leader, it was Yu Shuiyin's duty to handle the remains. With a flick, the carcasses vanished into her storage ring. The others gathered, ready to leave. But a low growl rumbled in the distance. Yu Shuiyin immediately broadened her spiritual sense. Something was off. Yu Shuiyin. Lin Yijuan noticed the subtle change in Yu Shuiyin's expression. What is it? Senior you. Did you sense something? The wolves we fought were only a small part of the real pack. The rest are coming. Double the number we faced, with a greater grand netherbone wolf as their leader, along with another lesser grand netherbone wolf. Lin Yijuan's face shifted to one of realization. Ah, shit, that explains it. For wolves seemed too few. Should we escape? Yu Shuiyin, deep in thought, waved her hand. A can of cola appeared in her palm. Cola, Hua Feishua blurted out, her eyes brightening. Instantly, the others understood. How could they have forgotten about their heaven-defying drink? Lin Yijuan, recalling his sparring match with his sworn brother, couldn't help but smile. He had already felt the overwhelming power of the cola firsthand. He was confident they would win this battle. But then, as Hua Feishue and Xiao Lianfeng both took out their cans of cola, Lin Yijuan's smile disappeared. He had already drunk his cola earlier. An imaginary Lin Yijuan could be seen dramatically kneeling, clutching his head. Should we run after all? Lin Yijuan suggested as he returned to reality. Xiao Lianfeng snickered and slapped him on the back. Looks like you'll be hiding behind me, brother Yijuan. You know, someone has to protect you. Hua Feishue giggled, tossing a wink at Lin Yijuan. Don't worry, Junior Lin. I'll make sure to take care of you too. If you're too slow, I might just have to carry you. Lin Yijuan's face stiffened. What do you mean, Junior Lin? We're at the same cultivation rank. Just because you have a cola? But as he thought about it, Lin Yijuan had to admit it wasn't wrong. With the cola's boost, Hua Feishue would be stronger than him, even if temporarily. Compared to them, he really was at a disadvantage now. Lin Yijuan sighed. Whatever. He wasn't the type to overthink things. If he needed a little help in this fight, so be it. Drink your cola. Yu Shuiyin interrupted. The atmosphere changed. Hua Feishue and Xiao Lianfeng instantly popped open their cans, followed by Yu Shuiyin. The sharp hiss of carbonation sounded around. Lin Yijuan didn't move, looking down at his empty hands. His mood sank. The others glanced at Lin Yijuan briefly, but were too focused on their own drinks to comment. Hua Feishue took a sip and instantly shivered. Wah! The icy coldness rushed through her mouth, followed by an explosion of sweetness that tingled on her tongue, making her gasp. This is so good. Xiao Lianfeng chugged down a mouthful. The freezing liquid hit his tongue, shocking his senses before a deep, caramel taste washed over him. Yu Shuiyin lifted her cola and drank in one go. The first wave of coldness numbed her tongue, crisp and pure. Tiny bubbles burst across her throat, leaving behind a refreshing sensation that lingered even after she swallowed. Gulp, gulp, gulp. As they drank, the world around them seemed to fade. Xiao Lianfeng finished his cola with a loud exhale. Before he could stop himself, he already let out a burp. Huh, that hit the spot. Hua Feishue burst into laughter. Pfft, Senior Xiao, you're not acting very dignified right now. Xiao Lianfeng wiped his mouth. Who needs dignity when it feels that good? The effects settled in. It was like a roaring flame had ignited in their veins, yet it felt light, like a breeze sharpening their every sense. Their reaction speed doubled. Their muscles responded faster, their minds cleared, as if their bodies had shed all sluggishness. Xiao Lianfeng curled his fingers into a fist, an energy flooding his body. With this kind of enhancement, how can we lose? Hua Feishue stretched her arms and hopped in place, grinning. I feel amazing. If Senior Xiao doesn't hurry, I might just take down that greater grand netherbone wolf myself. Yu Shuiyin bopped her head. Enough talk. Get ready. They prepared their weapons, moving into formation. Same as before. I'll lead. Lin Yijuan, stay near the back and focus on the weakest ones. Don't get reckless. Soon, the demonic beasts arrived, with the greater grand netherbone wolf leading the pack. Its loud, echoing howl signaled the attack. In an instant, the pack lunged toward Yu Shuiyin's group. The battle erupted. Blades flashed, fists struck, and blood splattered. As expected, this fight felt much easier than before, except for Lin Yijuan. The wolves' abilities were the same as last time, and they had already memorized their patterns. But now, with the cola's power behind their back, they carved through the pack like a raging storm. It wasn't a battle. It was a one-sided slaughter. Each movement felt smoother, each strike more precise. It was exhilarating, but they remained focused. They had to end this before the effect faded. A final cry resounded as the last wolf collapsed. After storing the netherbone wolf corpses, they exchanged looks. "We're not done yet, right? Let's find another one." Hua Feishua muttered. "We still have time." Xiao Yinfeng replied, rubbing his shoulders. The cola's effect hadn't worn off. Stopping now would be a waste. They had to keep going. It wasn't just adrenaline. It was an instinct, a cultivator's craving to push further. Yu Shuiyin gave a short nod. Without hesitation, they leaped onto their swords, soaring through the forest in search of any demonic beast unlucky enough to cross their path. Back in the convenience store, Hao was bored out of his mind. With nothing to do except watch the counter, he slumped over, chin resting on his palm. Occasionally, a customer would walk in, glance at the prices, click their tongue in disapproval, then stomped right back out like he had personally offended them. 3 crystals for this small thing? Are you robbing me? Even an immortal wouldn't pay this much. TSK. No wonder no one shops here. Hao barely even reacted anymore. He just waved them off. At least try it before you judge it. He sighed. If only he could say that out loud. But alas, the system strictly forbade such actions. All he could do was glare at their backs as they disappeared. Life as a storekeeper was rough. Night arrived. Hao was just peeling back the lid of his instant noodles when the store door creaked open. He looked up, expecting another stingy cultivator, but instead, a little girl? It was the first time a child had entered the store since Hao arrived here. She stood no taller than 4 feet 6 inches, with a messy red wolf-cut hairstyle. Her sharp black eyes carried a trace of wariness. She wore a tattered, dirty dark robe that contrasted her cute little face. Before Hao could even register her presence, a notification rang in his ears. "Host, a potential employee has entered the store." A floating screen appeared in front of him. Name, MOCC. Age, 13. Cultivation, 4th stage of Heavenly King Realm. Hao blinked, then blinked again. He slowly looked at the little girl, then back at the screen, then at the girl, then at the screen. His eyes darted between the two. So many times he was starting to feel dizzy. System, are you sure about this? 13 years old, Heavenly King Realm. The data is accurate. Host. Accurate my ass. Look at her. She's tiny. Hao gestured at MOCC, who was currently staring at the rows of cup of instant noodles. Are you telling me this little thing could slap me into the afterlife? She's strong, sure, but isn't she a bit too young to be an employee? Host. The dimensional convenience store only requires the employee to meet the cultivation realm requirement. Age is irrelevant. Hiya, isn't this basically child labor? Host, don't set your standards based on your previous world. So what? Next time a baby in diapers reaches Heavenly King Realm, you're telling me I have to put them behind the counter? The system remained silent, which somehow made him feel even worse. That's fine, whatever. Hao sighed, dragging a hand down his face. I guess when you can punch through mountains, normal rules don't apply to you. Welcome, Hao greeted. Looking for something, kid? For a split second, MOCC's expression soured in irritation. Key. She cut herself off, sparing Hao a glance. Food. Before Hao could reply, MOCC continued. I'll take a look around myself. Don't bother helping. Hao's face twitched. Damn, was this a genius thing? Did hitting Heavenly King Realm at 13 automatically come with an attitude? System, can I check this kid's background? Host, this request will cost 1 crystal. Your current balance is 0.3 crystals. Hao's face twitched. He had almost forgotten. The system took 90% of the profits. 1-to-9 profit-sharing ratio. I'm literally a minimum wage worker in my own store. Still, Hao needed to know what kind of situation this girl was in. Can I take a loan, system? It's for a good cause, you know, understanding my potential employee and all that. First-time request approved. Loan granted. Future loans will not be permitted. Host, your current balance is now minus 0.7 crystal. A floating screen appeared before him. MOCC background. Once the heir of the Ashen Curse cult, a demonic sect that fell due to internal conflict. Rival demonic cults took advantage of the chaos, wiping out her family and sect members. She was forced to flee to Sovereign City, where she had been surviving alone. With no money and no understanding of how normal society works, she's relied on stealing food while constantly staying on guard against potential pursuers. Hal looked at MOCC with pity. She's basically a stray cat that can one-shot most people in the city. Meanwhile, MOCC wandered over to the shelves where the cup of instant noodles were displayed. Chicken-flavored instant noodles. Noodles? Inside this. She grabbed a cup, shaking it lightly, as if expecting something magical to happen. But all she heard was the faint rustling of dried contents. Her gaze landed on the price tag. 1 crystal. MOCC froze. She blinked, rubbing her eyes and massaging her temple. Maybe hunger was messing with her vision? Nope. It was still 1 crystal. Her head snapped toward Hal. She glared at him. Although MOCC didn't know much about how things worked outside, she did know how valuable a crystal was, especially in her situation, where she had to scrape by just to survive. 1 crystal was practically a fortune. At the very least, a single crystal was worth 5 gold coins. How many pieces of bread could she buy with that? Her fingers tightened around the cup as she stared at it in disbelief. It was so small, and yet this tiny thing cost a whole crystal. Boss, are you robbing people in broad daylight? Is the store owner a demonic cultivator in disguise? With prices like this, he might as well be a demon. Boss, isn't she from a demonic cult? Where did she even learn that? Still, Hal didn't take her words to heart. It was a natural reaction for someone who didn't know the true value of instant noodles. He kept his best trustworthy storekeeper smile in place. Everything in this store is priced fairly. MOCC squinted at Hal like she had just heard him claim the sky was green. Boss, you expect me to believe that? Yes. Hal nodded with the confidence of a man who had done nothing wrong in his life. MOCC's suspicion deepened. She clicked her tongue. Boss, which demonic cult are you originally from? Hal almost choked on air. What do you mean demonic sect? I'm just a mortal. He stared at MOCC, who was studying him as if he were some evil mastermind. And why the hell does she keep adding boss to everything? Before Hal could complain, MOCC took a deep breath, seemingly debating something in her head. Boss, how about this? Lend me 1. I'll pay you back in the future. How? MOCC spoke as if she were granting Hal a favor rather than asking for one. Arms crossed, chin raised. Inside, though, her thoughts weren't nearly as composed. It's not technically lying. I will pay him back in the future. Not sure how long that'll take, or if I'll even still be in this world by then. Her lips curled into a bitter smile, but quickly masked it, returning to her usual haughty demeanor. Hal was about to immediately refuse, fully prepared to tell her this isn't a charity, but he caught a glimpse of her expression. Tired, hungry. For all her attitude, she was still just a kid who had been surviving alone. Hal exhaled. System, what's the process for hiring an employee? Do I need to interview her, or anything? You only need to offer the position, host. If she agrees, she will automatically be registered as an employee. Host simply needs to ask. No interview required, as she already met the minimum qualification. If she accepts, she just needs to sign the contract. That's it. No trials, no hidden conditions, none. Host. She will receive a starting salary of 2 crystals per day for a 6-hour shift. Salary adjustments will be discussed based on performance and store upgrades. Additionally, as an employee, she will receive 3 free meals per day from the store. Looks good enough. What about lodging? If she becomes an employee today, can she stay in the store building? Indeed, host. However, even if she agrees and officially becomes an employee today, the store expansion reward will only be implemented after business hours. That's fine. Hal glanced at MOCC, who was still standing, waiting for his response. Since the expansion wouldn't take effect right away, she wouldn't have a proper place to sleep yet. He thought about it for a moment and made a decision. Hal would let MOCC use his bedroom while he took the sofa in the living room. It was just one night. It wasn't a big deal. Hal smirked. You keep calling me boss, so why not make it official? Work here. Official? Me? Work? MOCC was utterly lost. What was he even talking about? She didn't quite understand what official meant, but she could tell he was asking her to work for him. Yes, 6-hour shift, 2 crystals per day, and 3 free meals. MOCC instinctively opened her mouth to refuse, but then froze. Wait, T2 crystals, and per day? How nodded? Yeah. MOCC's lips parted slightly. 2 crystals a day. That was 10 gold. She could live like an empress with that. No more struggling to find food. No more worrying about where to sleep. Wait. No. No. This was too good to be true. She shook her head furiously, snapping herself out of it. I'm not so easily bought, boss. Hal leaned on the counter. Then, as if a switch flipped her mind, MOCC stiffened. She wrapped her arms around herself and took a cautious step away from Hal. She shot Hal a wary look. Wait, you're not after my body, are you, boss? What the? Hal muttered. MOCC, looking even more convinced, nodded to herself. I have heard stories about this. Men luring naive girls with riches, only to... Stop right there. Hal held up a hand, looking utterly exhausted. What stories? You grew up in a demonic cult. Hal pinched the bridge of his nose. I'm hiring you for actual work, not whatever nonsense you're imagining. You'll sign a contract if you accept. It's proper work, not some shady deal. Boss, it's not a soul-slave contract, right? Soul-slave contract? I don't even know what that is. Host, a soul-slave contract is a binding agreement that forcibly ties a person's soul to the contract holder. The contracted individual loses all autonomy and must obey any order given to them. If they resist, their soul will suffer excruciating pain, and disobedience can even result in death. It is commonly used by demonic cultivators. The hell? That has to be illegal. It is illegal, host. Only the most ruthless sects and forbidden cults still dare to use it. However, the Dimensional Convenience Store does not use such crude methods. Instead, we use the all-encompassing primordial contract. This contract is a fair and balanced agreement between employer and employee, recognized by the fundamental laws of the multiverse. It ensures both parties uphold their terms without exploitation. The employer cannot mistreat or harm the employee, and the employee must fulfill their duties as agreed. Breaching the contract results in appropriate consequences, but no harm to the soul. No, it's not. What we'll use is called all-encompassing primordial contract. MOCC tilted her head, completely clueless. But with a name like that, it had to be something big. System, where do I get the contract? The moment Hal asked, the space itself seemed to distort. A ripple formed before him, resembling a small black hole, bending the fabric of space around it. MOCC immediately tensed, shifting into a defensive stance as the pressure sent a chill down her spine. But instead of danger, something else emerged. A scroll slowly materialized from the swirling void, floating in front of Hal. It was pristine white, glowing with a soft golden radiance. A red silk, not secured it shut. Hal reached out and grasped the scroll. As his fingers touched it, the swirling void vanished, as if someone had pulled the plug on a grand cosmic spectacle. The glowing effect on the scroll also disappeared instantly, leaving it as an ordinary, yet slightly fancy piece of paper. That was dramatic for no reason. Shrugging, he pulled off the red silk knot and unrolled the scroll. His eyes scanned the contents, nodding along. Everything seemed fair, generous even. But after reading about 3 lines, he started skimming. After 10 lines, his brain turned off entirely. A few seconds later, he rolled it back up with confidence. Looks good. Hal gestured at MOCC. All right, your turn. Come check it yourself. MOCC hesitated. Her gaze flickered between Hal and the scroll, her small hands slightly clenching. But then she remembered 2 crystal payments per day. That was 4 crystals in 2 days. 8 in 4 days. 60 in a month. Her caution weakened. This was wealth. She took a deep breath and slowly stepped forward. When she reached Hal, he casually handed it over. Go ahead. Read all the fine print or whatever. MOCC unrolled the scroll and started reading. She was thorough, her sharp eyes moving line by line. Minutes passed. She kept reading. More minutes passed. Hao yawned. Finally, she blinked. There was nothing wrong with it. In fact, it was way better than she expected. The contract stated that she would even be provided a room to stay if she wanted. It wasn't forced, just an option. Didn't this solve her problem completely? Another line caught MOCC's attention. She could quit any time she wanted. There was a penalty, but it was just that she'd never be able to work at the store again. She snorted. Who cares about that? If you were going to quit a job, why would you want to come back? That's like saying, I hate this place, only to show up the next day asking for work again. That's not how quitting works. There was also a clause stating that she couldn't reveal any sensitive information about the store to outsiders. But that was just common sense. Any work had confidentiality rules. There were plenty of other clauses, but MOCC didn't really care much about them. What really caught her attention was the working hours, only 6 hours a day. On top of that, she even got a 30-minute break, and it was counted as part of her work. She would receive her payment at the end of each day, no delays. MOCC examined Hao. He looked normal. If he stood in a crowd of thousands, he wouldn't stand out at all. Aside from his slightly above-average handsome face, there was nothing particularly striking about him. She hadn't detected his cultivation level either, which meant he was either immortal or much stronger than her. Boss, how do I sign it? Hao didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked, What's your name? MOCC. She didn't see the point in saying more. The contract even stated that she wasn't required to disclose any personal information to the owner. Hao had already known her name, but he still felt the need to ask. System, how does the signing process work? She must offer a drop of her blood to the contract host. The contract will absorb it and finalize the binding process. Just drop a bit of your blood on the paper, and the contract is done. MOCC nodded absent-mindedly, but paused as she glanced back at the contract. In the lowest left corner, her name was already there. She clearly remembered that part of the contract was blank just seconds ago. But after saying her name out loud, it had suddenly appeared. How? Hao didn't even touch the contract. She squinted at Hao. He hadn't touched the contract or even gotten close to it. Just how mysterious was this storekeeper? Still, the deal was too good to pass up. MOCC bit her finger, allowing a drop of blood drip onto the contract. The paper glowed faintly before floating out of her hands and hovering in front of Hao. System, what do I do now? Do I need to drop blood on it too? There's no way, right? Physically, he could do it. He had teeth, after all. But mentally, that was a whole other battle. Maybe he could use a knife? No, host. Simply place your palm on the paper to seal the contract. That will signify your agreement to hire her. Oh, that's definitely better. Hao pressed his palm onto the floating paper. The radiance intensified, engulfing his hand in a soft glow before. Whoosh! The light vanished in an instant, taking the contract with it. Congratulations, host. You have successfully hired your first employee. MOCC's uniform and name tag have been delivered to the storage area. Please continue working hard to grow the store. Hao smiled and turned to MOCC. Well, looks like you're officially hired. Welcome aboard, little CC. MOCC blinked. The name threw her off more than the fact that she was now employed. Before she could protest, Hao interrupted. You don't have to call me boss. Just call me Big Brother. I'll stick with boss. Hao chuckled. That's fine too. You can start working now if you want. MOCC wasn't even surprised anymore that the contract had disappeared into thin air like some divine decree. What truly baffled her was how fast everything had happened. This morning, she was jobless, homeless, and trying to figure out where to get her next meal. Now, she had a job, guaranteed pay, food, and even a place to stay if she wanted. Wasn't this basically a miracle? MOCC exhaled, trying to process it all. She gave a small nod. I want to work today, boss. What exactly am I supposed to do? Hao smirked. Follow me first. We'll get you changed into your uniform. Uniform? Hao led MOCC to the storage area. The moment she stepped inside, her eyes widened. The space was massive, far larger than the store itself. Hao immediately spotted a new box resting neatly on the floor. Opening it, he found a complete set of uniforms inside. A crisp black polo shirts, black high-waisted slacks, spotless white aprons, white socks, and pairs of polished black horsebit loafers. Sitting atop the neatly folded clothes was a single name tag, crafted from a silver-colored metal, with MOCC elegantly inscribed in black lettering. Hao whistled. Damn, the store really went all out. MOCC's fingers twitched as she stared at the uniform. It was hers. Her own. She held back her emotions, but her eyes couldn't hide her excitement. Even the little metal piece with her name engraved on it made her heart flutter. Little CC, put on your uniform first. I'll head back to the storefront. Just follow after. MOCC hesitated before giving a small nod. You don't have to tell me, boss. I know. She grabbed a polo and looked away. A quiet thank you slipped out, barely louder than a whisper. Hao's smile grew. MOCC was still trying to act tough, but he could tell how much this meant to her. He had no idea how difficult her life had been, surviving alone, but maybe, at least now, she had found a place to belong. Hao left. MOCC, now alone, took a closer look at the uniform. She rubbed the fabric between her fingers, and her brows lifted slightly. The material was high quality, smooth, durable, and comfortable to the touch. She wasn't an expert, but even she could tell this was better than anything she had worn before. She quickly changed, slipping into each piece one by one, but as she did, something felt off. Everything fit perfectly. The polo hugged her just right. The slacks weren't too tight or too loose, and even the loafers felt like they had been custom-made for her feet. Her movements slowed as a thought crept in. How'd Hao know her exact sizes? She stopped. Was he a pervert this whole time? No, that didn't seem right. She had watched him closely. His eyes didn't carry that kind of intent. Still, it was weird. Too weird. MOCC huffed. Never mind. Overthinking wouldn't help. She picked up her name tag. MOCC was written at the top, and below it, in smaller letters, was store crew. How do I wear this? She had seen Hao's name tag. It was on the left side of his chest. Mimicking that, she held it against her uniform. As it drew near, it automatically embedded itself into the fabric. Curious, MOCC jogged a few steps, then jumped in place. The name tag stayed perfectly in place, as if it had fused with the uniform. The clothes themselves were comfortable, light, breathable, and offering no restriction to her movements. She was confident she could fight at full strength in this. She tried removing her name tag, and to her surprise, it came off effortlessly. Is there some kind of formation on this? She already suspected the storage area had a spatial formation. There was no way it should be this big otherwise. But even the name tag had one. How extravagant. Afraid of losing it, MOCC quickly reattached her name tag. Unlike the uniform, which had multiple sets, there was only one name tag. Satisfied, she closed the box, placed it in the corner, and tucked her old clothes beside it. When she stepped back into the store, she spotted Hao sitting in the corner. Little CC, come over here. Hao called. MOCC walked toward him, her nerves cracking up. Was she about to start working? What exactly was she supposed to do? She had never worked in a store before. What if she messed up? Would she get kicked out? But instead of instructions, Hao just said casually, let's eat first. After this, you'll really start working. Don't worry, though. It's all within your shift. Right, system? As an employee, she should know how to eat and experience how amazing the store's products are, right? That is correct, host. Meal breaks are included in the shift, but any time exceeding 30 minutes is not allowed. Additionally, first-hand experience with store products will enhance the employee's ability to recommend them effectively. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Hao glanced at MOCC, who was still standing there, unsure of what to do. He gestured to the seat across from him. Sit first. On the table were 2 cups of instant noodles. Hao pushed one toward her. This is yours. This is the one that costs 1 crystal, boss. MOCC looked at the cup. Yes. Hao leaned back. It's free for you, though. Employee benefits. You've never had instant noodles before, right? I've eaten noodles before, boss. But instant noodles. I don't know anything about them. She chose to be honest. If she lied, it might cause problems later. That's all right. Take this as a lesson. You need to know how to prepare and eat them properly. Otherwise, how will you explain it to our customers? So this is part of my training? Exactly. How pointed are the cups? They're already cooking, but let me explain the process. He gestured toward a strange-looking machine in the corner. First, you open the lid and bring it to the water dispenser. MOCC followed his gaze. That thing, boss. Yeah, it's called water dispenser. You can think of it as an artifact that can produce water. It can release boiling, freezing, or just regular water, depending on what you need. MOCC looked at it again. It was her first time seeing such an artifact, but if it worked as Hao said, it was quite useful. The water dispenser automatically pours the right amount of water into the cup. All you have to do after that is close the lid of the cup and wait for it to cook. He tapped his fingers on the table. That's what I did. Now we just wait. Do you follow? Or is there any part you don't understand? MOCC nodded. I think I got it all, boss. Can you repeat the steps for me? Without hesitation, MOCC recited everything from opening the lid to waiting for the noodles to cook. She was confident in her memory. Hao smiled and gave her a thumbs up. Perfect. You got it all right. The noodles should be ready to eat now. He picked up his chopsticks. You know how to use chopsticks, right? MOCC scoffed. Of course, boss. What do you take me for? She picked up her chopsticks and lifted the lid of her cup noodles. A wave of rich, savory aroma hit her nose. Her throat bobbed, and for a second, she nearly drooled, but she shut her mouth and composed herself. She had to maintain her dignity. MOCC took her first bite and ascended to heaven. This taste. What divine chef crafted such a masterpiece? The broth was deep and flavorful, the noodles springy and perfect. Every slurp sent waves of warmth through her body, nourishing not just her stomach, but even her chi. Was it her hunger making it taste so good? Or was it just that amazing? No, it was that amazing. She slurped up the noodles like a starved beast, completely losing herself in the taste. MOCC finally understood. This was why it costs 1 crystal. It was more than worth it. She paused mid-bite and looked at Hao with utter seriousness. Boss, we should charge more than 1 crystal for this. Hao rejected instantly. No. Hao gave a firm head shake. The price will always stay the same. But boss, don't let greed cloud your judgment. Hao interjected. Now that you're an employee of this store, remember, everything here is fairly priced, and that will never change. Even if an emperor kneels and begs to pay more, it will still be 1 crystal. Not that he had a choice in the matter. If it were up to him, he'd have raised the price a little. Something of this quality should cost more, right? But the system had set the price, and unless he wanted to argue with an all-powerful, rule-enforcing entity, he had to follow along. MOCC nearly dropped her chopsticks. Even if an emperor kneels? She stared at Hao, stunned. Who else in this world would stick to such a principle? There was only one explanation. Her boss must be an immortal, a far stronger immortal than anyone else. She puffed out her chest. Understood, boss. As your loyal subordinate, I shall follow your will without question. Hao almost choked on his noodles. Subordinate? What in the world is little Cece on about? Is she bugging again? Before he could say anything, MOCC had already gone back to slurping down her noodles at lightning speed. Hao sighed before returning to his meal. As they finished eating, just as Hao figured, MOCC suddenly froze. Her breathing steadied. Her expression turned serene. Enlightenment figures. Hao scratched his head. This is a problem. Her break is only 30 minutes, and this could take just as long. If she goes over, does that mean she's slacking off? Before he could worry too much, the system's voice rang out. Host, there's no need for concern. Enlightenment gained from store products is classified as proper work. Strengthening an employee contributes to the store's operations. Therefore, this will not count in her meal break. So, getting stronger is considered work? That's one way to look at it. Since there was nothing else to do, Hao stood up and cleaned the table, disposing of the trash before heading back behind the counter. Unlike MOCC, he wasn't a cultivator. No matter how many bowls of those noodles he ate, they wouldn't do a thing for him. No enlightenment, no cheese surges, just a full stomach and a quiet shift ahead. Side task 2. Hire your first employee. You weren't planning to do everything yourself, right? 1 of 1. Reward. Store expansion. The 3rd floor will be unlocked, moving your personal room there. The 2nd floor will now be designated for employees. Status completed. Claim your reward now. Hal's eyes lit up. At last, things are moving forward. He tapped yes on the screen. Reward claimed. System, is there no new task? There is none, host. You must complete the main task and side task 1 before new tasks are assigned. I'll make sense. Hal shrugged. So, I'm stuck until I clear everything? This was just like a video game with forced progression. No skipping ahead until all the required tasks were done. Time flew by, and soon enough, MOCC regained consciousness. Her eyes snapped open as a powerful aura erupted around her. Chi flooded her meridians, bringing an overwhelming sense of strength. With a deep breath, she quickly suppressed it. She almost broke through to the 5th stage of the Heavenly King realm. Just a little more, and she'd step into a whole new level. Her heart pounded. It had been months since she had felt such a rapid increase in strength. After her cult fell, her cultivation stagnated, but now, she clenched her fists. This store is truly extraordinary. As reality sank in, MOCC swiftly scanned her surroundings. Hal was no longer beside her, but had already returned to the counter. She immediately stood up and walked over. Boss. She cupped her fists. Thank you. She had many things to say, but gratitude wasn't something expressed through words alone. She would prove her worth through action. After a brief pause, she lowered her head slightly. Apologies. I spent too long in enlightenment. I must have gone over my meal break. Hal waved his hand. It's fine. Getting stronger is also part of your work. It doesn't count against your break. MOCC was dumbfounded. What? Cultivation is considered work? In her entire life, she had never heard such a thing. This was a store, not a sect. Since when was getting stronger part of a store crew's duties? Shouldn't she be learning how to manage inventory or serve customers instead? Yet, here she was, gaining enlightenment over a bowl of noodles, and her boss treated it like any other task. Feel free to cultivate, little CC. If there are no customers, make good use of the time. MOCC faltered for a moment. No need, boss. I'm not some delicate flower. She took her place beside him, standing straight. I can cultivate even while standing. Hal stared at her. What the F? Standing? Seriously? This level of talent was insane. Then he remembered. MOCC wasn't merely gifted. She was a monstrous genius, leagues beyond other. She completely overshadowed even prodigies such as Yushuian. Hal crossed his arms, feeling both impressed and smug. A genius like her working under him? What a steal. Sure, her cultivation wasn't at the absolute peak, but it was still up high. And with her talent, it was only a matter of time before she surpassed those oldies. Unfortunate that I can't even step outside to see her flaunt her strength. A Heavenly King realm expert in action? That's ought to be a sight to see. Hal reached into the glass shelves and pulled out a cold can of cola. He tossed it toward MOCC, who caught it effortlessly. Here, try this. MOCC looked at the strange metal can, tilting her head. What is it? Just open it and drink. She did as told, pulling the tab. With a sharp hiss, bubbles frothed at the opening, releasing a cool, sweet aroma. The scent alone was enough to make her swallow unconsciously. Taking a sip, her ears perked up like a startled cat. The cold, fizzy sweetness burst forth in her mouth. The carbonation fizzled pleasantly as she swallowed, making her crave another sip. She covered her mouth, taken aback by the fizz. Good, right? MMH good, boss. She attempted to speak between sips, but the cola had completely stolen her attention. Before she knew it, the can was empty. MOCC blinked as the effects of the cola kicked in. Her reflexes sharpened. Her reaction time felt unnaturally fast, like her body was responding before she even thought about it. She glanced at the empty can in her hand, then at Hal. First, There was a cup of noodles that could bring enlightenment. Now, a drink that enhanced reflexes? MOCC gulped. She knew she could eat another instant noodles later, but for now, she wanted to focus on work. Not that there was much to do, there were still no customers. Boss, will there be more products in the future? Aside from the cola and instant noodles. Of course, there'll be plenty more. After all, we have to fill all these empty shelves, right? How casually replied. MOCC slowly nodded, looking around. The store still had a lot of space. If a small drink had such incredible effects, what else could future products offer? Could they be just as miraculous? Before, she had already thought Hao was an immortal. But now, maybe her boss was beyond even that. It was nearing closing time. Hao yawned. No customers. Again, maybe we should close early. Right when Hao was about to suggest it to MOCC, the door swung open. A tall young man walked in, his long, jet-black hair tied into a top knot with a jade hairpin. He wore a luxurious golden robe embroidered with red dragons, the fabric shimmering under the light. A golden sheathed sword was strapped to his back, secured with a silk cord. If showing off riches was an art, this guy had mastered it. All that was missing was a servant throwing gold coins in his path. This was Gong Xiaoyan, son of Gong Jian, the vice master of Azure Mist Dining Pavilion. Welcome. Hao greeted. MOCC, still enjoying the last traces of cola on her lips, copied Hao. Welcome. Gong Xiaoyan ignored them entirely, treating them like air as he made his way to the shelves.